Hey, welcome back. Today I've got 10 of the most unsettling Reddit threads I could find. If you enjoy it, hit subscribe and leave a like. Here we go. My mom, 62 female, with dementia, keeps saying that's not mine about things in her own house. And I, 31 female, just found out she might be right. Posted to r/offmychest by throwaway Noel Care 6 days ago. I don't even know where to start. I'm 31-year-old phone, veterinary technician. 8 months ago, I moved back into my childhood home to take care of my mom, Diane, 62 female. She was diagnosed with early onset dementia at 59. It's just the two of us in the house now. My older brother, Craig, 36, has a key and stops by sometimes, but he doesn't live here. My days all look the same. I'm up at 5, set out Diane's morning pills, leave breakfast on the counter with a note she sometimes reads and sometimes doesn't. I work 10-hour shifts at the clinic. Dogs, cats, the occasional ferret with an attitude problem. And the whole time my phone is face up on the counter in case the neighbor calls to say mom wandered into the yard again. I come home, cook dinner, manage the evening meds, sit with her through sundowning when she gets confused and scared and sometimes angry at things I can't see. I love her. I need people to understand that first. I love her and I moved back because no one else was going to. For months now, Diane has been pointing at things around the house and saying, "That's not mine." The towels in the hall bathroom, the pots in the kitchen, a picture frame on the mantel she swears she's never seen before. Every time, I do what the neurologist told me. Gentle redirection, don't argue, don't correct. I'd say, "It's okay, Mom, those have always been here." I felt guilty every single time, but I believed him. Confabulation, object recognition decline. The disease stealing pieces of her one room at a time. She wasn't confused, not about this. Last Tuesday, I was taking out the kitchen trash and a crumpled receipt fell out of the bag. Walmart. A Mainstays 10-piece cookware set, $34.96. Purchased 4 days earlier. I have never bought cookware from Walmart in my life. I stood there in the kitchen holding that receipt and something cold moved through me. I went to the cabinet and pulled out the pots one by one, turned them over. My mother received a Le Creuset set as a wedding gift in 1991. She's had it my entire life. I learned to make scrambled eggs in those pots. They were gone. Every single piece. In their place was a cheap non-stick set with a faint factory sticker still on the bottom of the smallest pan. I peeled it off with my thumbnail and my hands were shaking. My mom has been telling me for months that the things in her house aren't hers. I've been patting her hand and telling her she's wrong. She wasn't wrong. Someone has been coming into this house while I'm at work and swapping out her things. And I have been helping them get away with it by convincing her she couldn't trust her own mind. OP didn't sleep that night. After Diane finally dozed off around 11, I started going through the house room by room. I pulled every towel out of the hall closet. My mom kept Turkish cotton towels for as long as I can remember. Thick, heavy, this specific shade of sage green she ordered from a catalog in like 2008. What I pulled off the shelf was thin, scratchy, bright green. Wrong. I checked the tags. Mainstays. I went to the dining room. My mother had a silver-plated serving tray that belonged to her grandmother. She displayed it on the sideboard next to the china cabinet. The tray sitting there now is silver-colored, but too light. And when I flipped it over, there was no hallmark, no tarnish pattern, nothing. Just a smooth, blank bottom. I went to the garage and dug through the recycling bin. I found pieces of Walmart bags, a torn corner of an Amazon mailer, packing tape. I sat on the garage floor at midnight, surrounded by garbage, and tried to think clearly. 2 people have keys to this house, me and Craig. Craig comes by once or twice a week while I'm at work, says he's checking on Mom. No one else has a key. No one else comes inside. The only question she couldn't ask out loud yet. I called Priya around 1 in the morning. She picked up on the second ring because that's who she is. I told her everything. The receipt, the pots, the towels, the tray. I wasn't saying Craig's name yet, but we both knew it was hanging there. Priya listened, and then she asked me something I wasn't expecting. She said, "Has anything else changed with Diane lately? Beyond the agitation about the objects?" And I sat there quiet for a long time because yes it has. Diane's decline over the past 5 months has been sharp. faster than the neurologist predicted at her last assessment, worse every week. I told Priya I figured the disease was just being cruel, that progression is unpredictable, that some patients decline in steps and Diane was stepping down fast. Priya didn't push it. I told her I was thinking about putting up a camera, but the idea of surveilling my own mother in her own home made me feel sick. I decided to talk to Craig first, give him a chance. So I called him the next morning. He laughed a little and said, "Mom probably ordered stuff online during a confused episode and forgot." He said he'd seen her pick up his phone once and start tapping the screen. He said I was overthinking it, and I wanted to believe him so badly that I almost did. That night I lay in bed with the lights off, listening to Diane murmur something from down the hall. I couldn't make out the words. I just lay there staring at the ceiling, telling myself my brother wouldn't do this to our mother, and not quite believing it anymore. I bought a camera. $29 from Amazon, the kind that connects to your phone. I set it up on the bookshelf in the living room while Diane napped on Tuesday afternoon, angled it toward the front door and the hallway that leads to the kitchen. I didn't tell Craig. Over the next week, I checked the footage on my breaks at the clinic, sitting in the back room between appointments with my phone tilted away from my coworkers. Craig came by 3 times. The first time, he walked in carrying a plastic shopping bag and left 40 minutes later carrying a different bag, heavier, bulkier, held from the bottom. The second visit was the same, plastic bag in, bigger bag out. The third time, he spent almost 20 minutes in the kitchen while Diane sat watching a game show in the living room. I scrubbed through the footage frame by frame that night after she fell asleep. I could see him reach up above the fridge, not the regular cabinets, the high shelf. That's where I keep Diane's prescriptions, the donepezil and the memantine. He was up there for a while, his back to the camera, and then he stepped down and put something in his jacket pocket. I told myself maybe he was checking the meds. Maybe he was being helpful and I was being paranoid. But I screenshotted every frame. I saved every clip. Then I called Priya. Priya didn't ask about the cookware this time. Priya works as a pharmacy tech. I should have mentioned that before. When I told her what I saw on the camera, she went quiet in a way that scared me more than anything Craig had done on that footage. She asked me to describe Diane's pills. I grabbed the bottles from the shelf and read her the labels. Donepezil, 10 milligrams capsules. Memantine, 10 milligrams tablets. Both filled at CVS, both looking completely normal. Priya said, "Okay." Then she said, "Can you open one of the donepezil capsules and send me a photo of the powder inside?" I asked her why. She said, "Just do it, please." I said, "Okay, I'm going to do it right now." I took a capsule from the bottle and sat down at the kitchen table. My hands were shaking and I hadn't even opened it yet. This is genuinely one of the most disturbing things I've ever read on here. Your mother was telling you the truth, and the disease made it so nobody would believe her. That's a nightmare. Please get her back on the real medications as soon as possible and have her doctor monitor the reintroduction. Stopping donepezil abruptly and then restarting can cause a crash. This needs medical supervision. I keep thinking about all the times you gently corrected her. "No, Mom, those are your pots." She must have felt so alone. I can't stop thinking about this either. There was one night in March where she sat at the kitchen table crying and said, "Noelle, someone is stealing my life piece by piece and you're helping them." I held her and told her everything was okay. I told her nothing was missing. I was wrong about all of it, and I was the only person she had left to believe her. OP came back with an update. I found out what was actually in my mom's pill bottles. I opened the capsule, the donepezil. I twisted it apart over the kitchen table and a tan powder fell out onto a paper towel. I took a photo and sent it to Priya. She called me back in under 2 minutes. She said, "That's not donepezil. Donepezil powder is white. What you're looking at is consistent with a vitamin B supplement. The color, the texture, the smell." I sat there and I couldn't speak. She told me to check the memantine next, the tablets. She drove to the pharmacy the next morning on her day off and brought a real memantine tablet from the reference stock. She put it next to one of the pills from Diane's bottle. Same size, almost the same pale color, but the edges were different, and there was no imprint. Priya said it looked like melatonin, a sleep aid you can buy for $8 at any drugstore. My mother has been off her real medication for approximately 5 months. 5 months. That lines up almost exactly with when her decline accelerated, when she started getting worse faster than the neurologist expected, when I started losing more of her every week and blaming the disease for being cruel and unpredictable. It wasn't unpredictable. Craig has been taking her real prescriptions out of the bottles and replacing them with vitamins and melatonin, and I have been the one putting those fake pills in her hand every morning and every night, telling her, "Here you go, Mom, take your medicine," trusting that what was in the bottle was real because why wouldn't it be? Every time Diane said something wasn't hers, she was right. About the pots, about the towels, about the pills. I called Priya back that night and told her everything. The camera footage, the bags in, bags out, Craig reaching above the fridge, the receipts from Walmart, the cheap replacements all over the house. Priya came over after her shift, and we sat at the dining room table and documented all of it. She photographed every pill bottle, every capsule opened, the camera stills printed out on my home printer, the Walmart receipts I'd saved in a Ziploc bag. She was calm the whole time, and I was not. I kept going back to the same thing. My mother told me someone was stealing her life piece by piece, and I patted her hand and told her she was confused. The person accelerating her decline had a key to the front door, and I covered for him every single time by convincing her she couldn't trust what she saw. Priya put her hand on my arm at one point and said, "We need to go talk to him. Tonight." I grabbed my keys. The Le Creuset detail broke me. My grandmother had a set she brought from Portugal. She would have known if someone touched them. Your mom knew too. I work in elder care. What your brother did with the medications is not just theft, it's a form of assault. Please contact Adult Protective Services in addition to the police. Seconding this hard. In most states, deliberately withholding or substituting prescribed medication from a dependent adult is a felony. This isn't a family matter anymore. Craig committed elder abuse with a paper trail of resale listings. Craig opened the door and saw Priya standing behind me, and he knew. He didn't try to stop us from coming in. I found my mother's Le Creuset set stacked in his hall closet. The Dutch oven, the saucepan, the skillet, all of it, shoved behind a pile of coats. In a shoebox on his bedroom shelf, I found Diane's jewelry, her opal ring, the pearl earrings my father gave her on their 20th anniversary. Pieces I had assumed she'd misplaced during confused episodes. Pieces I'd searched the house for on my hands and knees while she cried. In a drawer in his desk, I found unopened blister packs of Diane's real donepezil and real memantine. Some of them had already been photographed and listed on resale sites. He'd been selling her actual medication online, alongside the cookware and the jewelry. All of it funding a gambling habit none of us knew about. When I confronted him with everything, the camera footage, the receipts, the pills, the photographs Priya and I had documented, he didn't deny it. He didn't apologize. He looked at me and said, flat, like he was telling me the weather, "She doesn't even know what day it is. What difference does it make?" That was the last thing my brother said to me. She filed a police report that night. I initiated emergency guardianship proceedings the next morning. Diane's neurologist has been informed about the medication substitution and is supervising her transition back onto real donepezil and memantine. I changed the locks. Craig's key doesn't work anymore. But I'm not writing this because of the legal stuff or the next steps. I'm writing this because it's 1 a.m. and I'm sitting in Diane's kitchen alone, and I'm looking at every single object on the counter, every mug in the cabinet, every frame on the wall, and I don't know what's real anymore. I don't know how many other things in this house are replacements I haven't caught yet. I don't know which parts of my mother's decline were the disease doing what diseases do, and which parts were my brother starving her brain of the only medication slowing it down. I don't know how to separate those two things. I don't think I ever will. She's asleep down the hall right now, safe, on her real medication for the first time in 5 months. And I keep thinking about what she said to me in March. "Noelle, someone is stealing my life piece by piece, and you're helping them." She was right about everything. I just couldn't hear her. Has anyone checked whether the replacement items are even safe? Cheap cookware can have lead in the coating. If you bought the absolute cheapest versions of everything, your mom might have additional exposure issues. On to the next one. I, 26 female, Broke up with my boyfriend 2 months ago, but everyone in my life insists we're still together. Something about her life stopped making sense, and nobody else seemed to notice. So I don't even know where to start with this. I'm a 26F veterinary technician, and I live alone in my apartment. 2 months ago, I broke up with my boyfriend Caleb, 28, male. It was clean. No screaming, no plates thrown, no dramatic blowout. I sat him down, told him I was done, explained why, and he listened. He packed his things over the weekend. I changed the locks on my apartment the following Monday. I thought that was it. I told my younger sister Bree, 22, and my best friend Marin, and they both said they supported me. My mom was disappointed, but she didn't fight me on it. I grieved the relationship quietly, picked up extra shifts at the clinic, and started feeling like myself again. That should have been the end of the story. It wasn't. It started small enough to explain away. About 3 weeks after the breakup, my mom called and casually mentioned you and Caleb's plans for Easter brunch. I corrected her. She laughed like I'd made a weird joke and moved on. Then one of my coworkers at the vet clinic asked how Caleb's job interview went, something he had apparently told her about when he stopped by to bring me lunch. I hadn't seen Caleb. He hadn't brought me lunch. Then Bree texted asking about a double date I had supposedly agreed to with her and her boyfriend. I never agreed to anything. Every single time I corrected someone, they looked at me the same way, like I was the one who was confused, like I was the glitch. I started keeping a list in my notes app because I genuinely thought I was losing it. Then, last Tuesday, I came back from my lunch break at the clinic, and my coworker smiled and said Caleb had just stopped by to drop off soup because I mentioned feeling sick. I felt my stomach drop. I hadn't told anyone I was feeling sick. I haven't spoken to Caleb in 2 months. How did he know? Why was he at my job? And why did she look at me like I was crazy when I said we broke up? She decided to stop letting it slide. After the soup incident, I couldn't just keep correcting people and moving on. I needed to be direct. So I called my mom that night and said it plainly. Mom, Caleb and I are not together. We broke up 2 months ago. I need you to hear me. She was quiet for a second, and then she laughed. Not a mean laugh, just a genuinely confused one. She said, Honey, he literally texted me the photo of the pie you two baked last weekend. I did not bake a pie. I did not see Caleb last weekend. I spent last Saturday doing laundry and watching trash TV alone in my apartment. I told her that, and she got quiet again, and then said maybe I was just stressed from work and forgetting things. I hung up feeling like I was standing on a floor that was slowly tilting. I texted Bree next. She responded almost immediately, super casual, asking if Caleb and I had picked a restaurant for the double date yet. I told her there was no double date. There was no Caleb. We were done. Bree sent back a screenshot of our text conversation. There it was, messages from my number, in my voice, using the nickname I've called her since she was little, talking about how Caleb and I worked through our issues and I was so glad I gave him another chance. I was staring at words I never typed. The people she trusted most had already chosen which version of her to believe. I called Marin. If anyone was going to believe me, it was her. She's been my person since college, and she was the first one I told when I ended things with Caleb. I told her everything. The soup, the pie photo, the text to Bree. She got really quiet. Then she said, and I can still hear her voice, Babe, you literally called me like 2 weeks ago and told me you were being dramatic and that you and Caleb worked things out. You sounded happy. I never made that call. I checked my phone, my call log, my sent messages, everything. Nothing unusual. No outgoing calls I didn't remember. No sent texts I didn't write. My phone looked completely normal, which honestly made it worse because at least if I'd found something I could point to it and say, see, something is wrong. Instead, I just had my own word against everyone else's. I started locking my apartment door twice before bed, then checking it a third time. I'd lie awake staring at my phone on the nightstand like it was something alive. Everyone in my life had a version of me that was still with Caleb, still happy, still planning a future with him. And that version of me was more convincing than the real one standing right in front of them, begging to be believed. Then she found the email. So I need to update this because things have gotten worse. After my last post, I started going through everything, not just my text, but my email too. One of my coworkers mentioned a barbecue her husband is throwing next month and said she was glad Caleb and I could make it. I never RSVP'd to anything. I went into my sent folder and there it was, an email from my account sent 3 days ago confirming that we would be there and asking what to bring. I did not write that email. I did not send it. I sat in the break room at the clinic staring at my phone and I could feel my hands shaking. I went to my Google account security page and checked recent activity. There were active sessions on 2 devices I have never seen before. One was logged in from a location across town. The other had been active for over 7 weeks. 7 weeks. That's almost the entire time since the breakup. Someone has been inside my account, reading my emails, seeing every conversation, and sending messages as me. I think I already know who. I changed my password and enabled 2-factor authentication and logged out every device. But I sat there after doing it and just felt hollow, because whatever damage was done is already done. This is not a communication issue. This is someone who has decided the breakup didn't happen and is rewriting reality around you. Please take this seriously. I just want to point out that him showing up at your job means he also knows your schedule. Document everything. Dates, times, witnesses. You may need it. Info. When you correct people, what exactly do they say back? Like, do they argue with you or just look confused? Because if everyone has the same wrong information, someone is feeding it to them. That's exactly what's been making me feel insane. They don't argue. They look at me like I'm confused. My sister actually pulled up a text thread between us where I told her Caleb and I got back together and that I'd been embarrassed about the breakup drama. I never sent that text. I stared at it on her phone and it was in our thread, between real messages I did send. I had to leave the room because I couldn't breathe. 2 months of her life had been lived by someone else. She posted the update the next day. I found out how he was doing it, and it's worse than I thought. Marin's boyfriend works in network engineering, and when I told Marin everything, she sent him over to my apartment that same night. He sat down with my laptop and my phone and walked me through a full account audit. Here is what we found. Caleb never logged out of my Google account after we broke up. He had access to everything. My Gmail, my Google Messages sync, my photos, my calendar, my contacts. For 2 months, he had been reading every single message I sent and received in real time. But he wasn't just reading, he was replying. He was sending texts to my mom from my account confirming Sunday dinners. He was messaging Bree using the nickname I've called her since she was a kid, chatting about double dates and how happy I was. He told Marin, as me, that I had been dramatic about the breakup and that we worked things out. He replied to my mom's Easter text with a photo of us from my cloud storage as proof we were still together. He was running both sides. His own messages to my family as Caleb, and my responses back as me. He matched my texting style so well that nobody questioned it for 2 months. He built a whole version of me that was happier, more forgiving, still in love with him. And everyone believed her over me. I've filed a police report. Marin's boyfriend documented everything, and I have screenshots of every session, every device, every message he sent pretending to be me. I haven't contacted Caleb. He doesn't know I know yet. The soup thing at your workplace is what got me. He's showing up where you work with food like everything is normal. That's not love, that's territory marking. I had an ex who did something similar but smaller scale. He kept texting my mom for weeks after we split. It escalated. Please don't wait for it to escalate. The scale here is already past weird ex territory. He is maintaining an entire fictional relationship with her family and friends as her. That is not a red flag. That is the thing the red flags were warning about. The protective order went through. But that wasn't the end. The court granted the protective order last week. I should have felt relief, but I just felt tired. Bree came with me to Caleb's apartment to pick up a box of my personal documents. Mail he had apparently been intercepting after he set up forwarding from my address to his. His landlord let us in. The apartment was clean, almost eerily normal. And then we walked past his desk. On the wall beside it, there was a printed calendar, 14 months mapped out. My birthday dinner in August with the restaurant already picked. A trip to Maine in September with a cabin circled. November had a single entry: ring appointment. He had planned the next year and a half of a life with someone who broke up with him and meant it. Every holiday, every weekend trip, every milestone, all of it detailed, all of it real to him, none of it mine. Bree stood there staring at it, and I watched her face change. She went pale. She didn't say anything for a long time, and then she turned to me in the hallway and said, "I'm so sorry," and just held me. She finally understood. She got it in a way that words from me never could have made her get it. My mom called that night. I thought maybe Bree had talked to her. Maybe she'd finally see it too. Instead, my mom told me I was being cruel to a man who clearly loved me. She said she didn't care what some court order said. Caleb was a good person, and she would keep inviting him to Sunday dinner. I hung up and sat on my kitchen floor for a while. I've started therapy. My therapist says what Caleb did has a name, and that it's more common than people think, which doesn't make me feel better, but at least makes me feel less crazy. I don't know how to grieve a relationship that my own family won't let die. I changed my locks again, even though he never had keys to the new ones. I check my accounts every morning like a ritual. I'm still in my apartment, alone, which used to feel like freedom. Now it just feels like the only space left in my life that's actually mine. I don't know if that's healing or just surviving, but it's what I have right now. The fact that your own sister thinks you're still together is the part that would break me. How does he have access to that many people in your life? Bree gets it now. She saw the calendar on his wall, and something clicked that I couldn't explain with words. But my mom still doesn't. And honestly, that's the part that breaks me more than anything Caleb did. He manipulated her, but she's choosing to stay manipulated. I can't force someone to believe me when they've decided not to. On to the next one. I, 26 female, took a taxi in Tbilisi, and the driver had my dead grandparents' wedding photo on his dashboard. Posted 6 days ago by Throw Maple Ash to r/nosleep. I'm typing this from a hotel room in Tbilisi, Georgia, and my hands have not stopped shaking for 4 hours. I need to write this down before I convince myself it didn't happen. My grandmother Nana passed away in early 2024. She was the center of everything in our family, the one who held it all together. Her final wish was specific and strange. She wanted her ashes scattered in Tbilisi, Georgia. The thing is, Nana always told us she'd never been to Georgia, never been anywhere in the former Soviet Union. When we asked why Tbilisi, she just said it was somewhere she'd always wanted to see. We thought it was a bucket list thing she never got around to. Sad, but simple. I volunteered for the trip. I'm a freelance translator. I work remotely, and I live alone. No one depending on me, no schedule I couldn't move around. My mother, Diane, offered to come with me, but I told her I'd be fine on my own. I wanted to do this for Nana myself. It felt right. I landed at Tbilisi airport yesterday afternoon. The cab was already waiting. I grabbed a taxi from the arrivals line. Older sedan, older guy behind the wheel. Maybe mid-60s, gray hair, deep lines across his face. I gave him the hotel address in my broken Georgian, and he nodded without a word. That's when I saw it. A small, framed photo propped against the dashboard by the windshield. Two faces, cropped tight. A young couple, maybe early 20s. I knew those faces. I grew up walking past them every single time I visited Nana's house. That photo hung in her hallway for 40 years. It was my grandparents on their wedding day. The same photo. Except this version was cropped differently, tighter on the faces, no church in the background. I couldn't breathe. I opened my mouth and nothing came out. The driver glanced at me through the rearview mirror. His eyes were steady, not surprised, like he'd been expecting this moment for a long time. "I know she's gone," he said, calm, accented English. I hadn't told him anything. Not about Nana, not about the ashes, nothing. I'd barely spoken a full sentence. He pulled over to the side of the road, reached across, and opened the glove box. He took out a sealed envelope and held it toward me. My full legal name was written on the front in Nana's handwriting. The same slanted cursive from every birthday card she ever sent me. I'm in my hotel room now, staring at this envelope. I haven't opened it. The driver waited in silence until I took it, then drove me here without another word. I don't know what to do. She didn't leave the taxi. I should have gotten out. Every rational part of my brain was screaming at me to open the door, grab my bag, and walk away. But I couldn't. I was sitting in the back of a stranger's car on the side of a highway outside Tbilisi, holding an envelope with my dead grandmother's handwriting on it, and I couldn't move. "How do you have this?" I said. I wasn't asking. I was demanding. I held up the envelope and my voice cracked. "How do you know my name? How do you have that photo?" He turned around in his seat, slowly, like he'd rehearsed this moment 1,000 times. "My name is Dato," he said. That's all he offered. Not a last name, just Dato. I do this thing. It's a translator habit I can't turn off. When someone speaks a second language, I automatically catalog their patterns. Dato's English was careful, precise. Not fluent the way you get from watching TV or living abroad. Practiced, like someone who learned it with intent, for a specific reason, over a long time. He didn't answer my questions. Instead, he said, "I have been driving airport route for 11 years. Then he asked if I wanted to go to my hotel first, or if I wanted to hear why. I told him I wanted answers right now. He gave her one. Dato pulled back onto the road and drove slowly toward the city. He spoke without looking at me. "Your grandmother came to Georgia once, long time ago, when it was still Soviet." He paused. "She was very young, 17. My stomach dropped. Nana was born in 1950. 17 would have been 1967. She never once mentioned any trip to the Soviet Union. Not to me, not to my mother Diane, not to anyone as far as I knew. I asked him how he found me, how he knew I'd be on that flight. Dato explained he had a cousin who works at the airport, someone in ground operations who could see passenger manifests. A Canadian passport holder with Nana's maiden surname had appeared on the arrivals list. He said he knew immediately. That's when the fear really set in. Not the shock from seeing the photo or the envelope. Real fear. This man had tracked my arrival. He had connections at the airport. He'd been waiting for someone from my family to show up for over a decade. But I was in a foreign city. I had my dead grandmother's ashes in my carry-on. And this stranger knew things about Nana that I didn't. I couldn't just walk away from that. I texted my cousin Reese a photo of the taxi's license plate with no explanation. Just the plate and the words, "If you don't hear from me in 12 hours, call the Canadian Embassy in Georgia." I still haven't opened the envelope. She read it 3 times before she believed it. Dato pulled up to the hotel and didn't turn off the engine. He didn't ask to come in. He didn't push. He just said, "Read the letter. I will wait for you to find me if you want." Then he handed me a scrap of paper with a phone number written on it in blue ink and waited for me to get out. I stood on the sidewalk holding my bag with Nana's ashes in one hand and the envelope in the other and watched him drive away. Then I went to my room, sat on the edge of the bed, and opened it. Half a page. Nana's handwriting, the same slanted cursive I'd recognize anywhere. The same hand that wrote "Happy birthday, my brave girl" on every card for 20 years. She wrote that there were things she never told anyone, that she was sorry for the way I was learning them. She asked me to trust Dato. She didn't explain who he was. All she said was, "He is the reason I asked you to come to Tbilisi," and "Please hear what he has to say, and then bring what he gives you back to your mother." Bring what he gives you back to your mother. That line terrified me more than anything Dato had said in the car. I called my mother Diane. I kept it casual, told her I'd landed safe, the hotel was fine, I'd scatter the ashes tomorrow. I was fishing, trying to feel out if she knew something I didn't. She didn't. She just sounded worried and told me to do what Nana asked and come home. I didn't mention Dato or the letter. Then I called Reese. My cousin is the only person in this family I can be fully honest with, and I needed someone to tell me I wasn't losing my mind. Reese listened to all of it and then said, very firmly, "Do not meet that man again." She said the airport manifest thing alone should have me calling the police. She said a man who tracks your flight and has a letter ready in a glove box is not someone who is safe to be around, no matter what's in the letter. She's right. I know she's right. But I lay awake until 4 in the morning, reading and rereading that half page. Nana had this way of writing. She'd start a sentence, break it with a dash, then finish the thought sideways, like her pen couldn't keep up with her thinking. Nobody could fake that. I've seen it 100 times. This letter is real. Whatever Nana set in motion, she did it deliberately. I'm going to call Dado tomorrow. The fact that he had your full legal name on an envelope ready to go means this wasn't chance. He's been prepared for years. That's not threatening. It's devastating. The airport manifest thing is a huge red flag. That cousin committed a crime sharing passenger data. Please be careful about what information you give this man going forward. I know. I've thought about this constantly since I got home. What I didn't include in the post is that when I checked my booking confirmation, the taxi company I reserved through doesn't exist anymore. The website is dead, phone disconnected. I think Nana booked it before she died and prepaid. She set up the exact car I'd get into. I wasn't randomly assigned to Dado. She sent me to him. Throw Maple Ash posted an update the following day. I opened the second envelope, and I wish I hadn't. I met Dado at a cafe near my hotel the next morning. Seeing him outside the taxi, in daylight, standing up, it hit me like a wall. Something in his face looked like Nana. The jawline. The way he held his hands flat on the table, fingers spread, exactly the way she used to. I almost said it out loud, but I bit it back. He ordered us both tea without asking, and then he told me everything. Dado is Nana's son, her firstborn. In 1967, Nana was 17. Her parents arranged for her to spend a summer in Soviet Georgia through a cultural exchange program. She met a man there. She got pregnant. She gave birth to a boy, Dado, and then her parents came and brought her back to Canada. They made her leave the baby with his father's family. She never told a single person back home. Dado grew up knowing his mother was Canadian. He knew her name. He spent decades trying to find her, and eventually he did. He tracked the family from a distance for years. But when he finally made contact with Nana, she begged him, never reach out directly while she was alive. She said it would destroy what she'd built. He agreed. He waited. He's been waiting since before I was born. Then he reached under the table and pulled out a second sealed envelope. This one had my mother's name on it, Diane, same handwriting. He said, "Your mother needs to read this. She is not who she thinks she is." She opened it anyway. I know I shouldn't have. It was addressed to Diane, not to me. But I was sitting across from a man who might be my grandmother's secret son in a cafe in Tbilisi, and my hands were already tearing the seal before I'd made a conscious decision. The second letter was longer than the first. Nana wrote that after she came back from Georgia and lost Dado, she had what her parents called a bad spell. It was a breakdown, a serious one. There was a family court case, sealed records, everything buried. Nana temporarily lost parental rights. During that period, a baby girl was placed with her through the adoption system. Nana recovered, raised the girl as her own, and never spoke of any of it again. That girl was my mother. Diane is not Nana's biological daughter. She was adopted. Nana's only biological child is the man sitting across from me right now, stirring his tea with a steady hand. I am not connected to Nana by blood, not through my mother. The man I met yesterday in a taxi, the one my cousin told me to run from, he is the one who actually carries Nana's blood. Not me, not Diane. I sat in that cafe for a very long time without speaking. Your grandmother orchestrated this from beyond the grave. She made sure you'd take that specific taxi from the airport, probably knew you'd use the same service she booked. I'm genuinely shaking reading this. The part where he said, "I know she's gone," before you told him anything. I physically recoiled. How long was he watching Arrivals before you landed? This is grief weaponized. Your Nana loved you, clearly, but she also used you as a delivery system for a secret she was too afraid to tell while alive. You're allowed to be angry about that. This is exactly what I was trying to articulate. There's something deeply selfish about making your granddaughter carry a bomb like that across an ocean. Nana doesn't have to deal with the fallout. OP does. Diane does. Dado's been dealing with it for 40 years already. The next morning, Dado drove me to a hillside outside the city. He said Nana had described it in a letter years ago, a spot where you could see all of Tbilisi below and the mountains behind it. I don't know if it was the exact place she meant, but it felt right. I opened the urn and scattered her ashes, and neither of us said a word. The wind carried most of it east. Dado stood a few feet behind me the whole time with his hands at his sides. I flew home 2 days later. I gave Diane the second envelope. I sat across from her at her kitchen table and watched her read it. She went very still. She set the letter down, folded her hands, and said, "I already knew I was adopted." She'd found out years ago. She never told me. She never told anyone. But she didn't know about Dado. I told her everything. The taxi, the photo, the letters, the cafe. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said very firmly, "I need you to never contact that man again." I said okay. I meant it. For 3 weeks, things were quiet. I went back to my apartment, back to freelance translation work, back to the routine. But nothing felt the same. Every memory of Nana had a second version now, a shadow behind it I wasn't allowed to see before. Then she found the voicemail. I'd kept Nana's old phone charged since she died. Sentimental, I know. I just liked seeing her name light up on the screen sometimes. I was cleaning out a drawer when I picked it up and noticed a voicemail I'd never checked. It was from an international number, recorded the day before Nana died. Dado's voice. Steady, the same careful English I'd heard in the taxi. 5 words. "Mother, I'll be at the airport." He wasn't talking about my flight. He didn't know I'd be the one coming. He was expecting Nana. He thought she was finally coming back herself. Nana's final wish was never about scattering ashes. It was never about Tbilisi being somewhere she'd always wanted to see. She engineered this. The trip, the taxi company that doesn't exist anymore, the envelope in the glove box. She spent her last months making sure that when she died, someone from her family would land in Dado's car. She couldn't reunite us while she was alive, so she used her death to do it. I promised Diane I'd leave it alone. I haven't called the number on that scrap of paper, but I still have it. And Dado is still driving that airport route, 11 years and counting, waiting for someone who was never going to walk through arrivals. I don't know what to do with any of this. I work in international adoption law. Sealed custody cases from the 70s to 80s in Canada are an absolute nightmare to unseal. If your grandmother lost custody rights, there's a paper trail somewhere in provincial court records. You deserve to see it. On to the next one. When I was little, my neighbor used to feed me fruit over the fence. I just found out no one ever lived in that house. 28 female. She remembers it as kindness. That is what makes this so hard to hear. So I don't really know where to start with this. I'm 28F, I work as a speech-language pathologist, and I live with my long-term boyfriend Cal about 2 hours from where I grew up. My grandmother passed in January, and I've been the one handling the estate, getting her house ready to sell. It's the same house I spent most of my childhood in, on a quiet little cul-de-sac in Central Oregon. Small town, pine trees. Nothing ever happened there. When I was little, maybe 4 years old, I started going to the back fence after lunch every day. Our yard backed up to what I always assumed was another property. There was this huge cedar fence, had to be 10 feet tall, and I couldn't see over it. But someone on the other side could reach over. I called him the garden man. He was tall, unbelievably tall. He would reach one long arm over the top of the fence and hand me fruit. Sliced apricots mostly, sometimes plums, and occasionally these pale, almost translucent pieces of something I never could identify. His fingers were gray and always cold. I never once saw his face. He never spoke, he just hummed. This low, steady sound, the same pattern every time, like a song with no words. This went on until I was about 7. My mother knew. She watched from the kitchen window. She never stopped it. I never questioned any of this. It felt safe. It felt like the most normal thing in the world. Then she found the photograph. Last Thursday, I was sorting through a box of my grandmother's photos, and I found one from my 5th birthday. Backyard party, streamers on the deck railing, the whole thing. I almost set it aside, but something in the background made me stop. Behind the fence line, above it, there is something visible from roughly the chest up. It is tall and dark, and it has no features I can make out. Its shape is slightly tilted, angled toward the camera like it's watching. And in the foreground, my mother is smiling. She's facing it directly. Her body is turned toward the fence the way you'd pose next to someone at a party, like she's standing with a guest. I have been staring at this photo for 3 days. My hands are shaking as I type this. I don't know what I'm looking at. I don't know what fed me fruit for 3 years of my life, and I don't know why my mother smiled at it like she knew exactly what it was. She tried to explain it away. The explanation was worse. I spent 2 days telling myself it was a tree, a shadow, some trick of the light hitting the fence at the right angle. But I kept coming back to the proportions. That fence is 10 feet tall. I measured it when I was 15 because my grandmother wanted to know if it met code. Whatever is in that photo clears the top of it by at least 2 feet, maybe more. Trees don't tilt their heads. I'm a speech-language pathologist. I assess things for a living. I document, I measure, I compare baselines. So I did what I do. I started pulling records. The county assessor's website let me look up the parcel behind the fence using the lot number from my grandmother's property survey. The lot is owned by the Oregon Department of Forestry. It has been since 1979. There has never been a structure on it. No permits, no utility hookups, no water, no electric, no septic, no resident, ever. It is designated wildland buffer for the Forest Service. There was no neighbor. There was no house. There was no garden. Something stood in state-owned forest land for 3 years and handed sliced fruit to a child, and nobody questioned where it came from. She called the only people who might remember. I called my sister Nadia that night. She's 4 years younger than me, so she would have been a baby or a toddler when I was doing my little fence ritual. I asked her if she remembered anything about the backyard, about the fence, about anyone next door. She got quiet. Then she said she didn't really remember much about that house, and changed the subject to the estate paperwork. I tried twice more to bring it up, and she shut it down both times. Not angry, just closed. Like a door clicking shut. I tried my mother next. We haven't spoken in almost 2 years. The call went to voicemail. I didn't leave a message. What would I even say? That night, I lay in my grandmother's old bedroom and watched the fence through the window. Cal texted asking if I was okay, and I just wrote back, "Long day." The cedar is warped now, leaning in places, gray with age. But there's one section, maybe 3 feet across, toward the center, that looks darker than the rest. Not shadow dark, stained. Like something wet pressed against it over and over and the wood soaked it in. I watched that spot for a long time. I did not go outside to check. She went back to the fence in daylight. Daylight did not help. I went out to the yard the next morning. I told myself I was just checking the property for the realtor, noting what needed repair, what could stay, but I walked straight to the fence. The cedar is old. Most of it is rough, splintered, gray from decades of Oregon rain. But there's one section near the center, maybe 3 feet across, where the top edge is different. It's smooth. Not weathered smooth, worn smooth, polished, almost concave, like something heavy pressed against it over and over until the grain compressed. I ran my fingers along it, and the wood felt almost soft. And there was a smell, faint, sweet, slightly rotten, like stone fruit left in the sun too long. Standing there, things started coming back in pieces. The humming wasn't random. It had a shape to it, a rise and a fall, almost like a question followed by an answer, the same pattern every time. The gray fingers were always cold, even in July. And the pale fruit, the kind I could never name, had seeds inside that were soft. Not hard pits like a peach or a plum. Soft, like you could crush them between your fingers. I remember biting into one and the seed just dissolving. I remember my mother standing at the kitchen window while I ate, and she was smiling. This is where her training made it worse. I keep circling back to the humming because it's the part I can't compartmentalize. I work with nonverbal patients. I work with kids who are developing speech and adults who have lost it. I know what prelinguistic vocalization sounds like. I know what prosodic contour is, the melody of speech, the rhythm and pitch that carries meaning even when words don't. That humming had prosodic contour. It rose and fell in patterns that repeated. There were pauses where pauses would go if it were a sentence. It wasn't music, and it wasn't noise. It was something trying to speak the way you or I speak, but without the anatomy to do it. Without a tongue, or teeth, or a larynx. It was approximating. I assess this in children for a living, the gap between intent to communicate and the physical ability to produce speech. Whatever was behind that fence had the intent. It just didn't have the mouth. I don't know if anyone in Central Oregon has ever encountered something like this. I'm posting because I don't know where else to go. If you've heard of anything, on the forestry land east of Tumalo, in the old-growth sections, anything, please reach out. The part about it saying your childhood nickname to your sister absolutely wrecked me. That's not predatory behavior. That's grief. Somehow that's worse. Speech pathologist here too. The detail about it humming instead of speaking hit me differently. Humming is prelinguistic. Whatever this thing is, it was trying to communicate the only way it could. Your mom posed with it in the birthday photo. She knew. She's known this whole time. That's the part I can't get past. She didn't just know. When I called her, she didn't even sound surprised. She asked if it left me something, like she expected it to. Like there was an arrangement. I keep thinking about all the times she sent me out to play in the backyard alone, and now I feel sick. She set a place for it. That's the only way I can describe what she did. She set a place at our life for it, and never told us what it was. She posted an update. Nobody was ready for it. I called my mom about the garden man, and I wish I hadn't. I called Nadia again last night. I didn't ease into it this time. I told her what I found in the county records, that there was no house behind the fence, that there had never been a house, that the land was state forest. She was quiet for a long time. Then she started crying. She told me she remembers the garden man, not from watching me, from going to the fence herself. Her visits started right around when mine stopped. I was about 7, which would have made her 3 or 4. She described the same things I did. The arm reaching over, the gray fingers, the cold skin, the humming, the sliced apricots, and the pale fruit she couldn't name. I have never told Nadia any of those details. Not once. Not publicly, not privately. She knew them because she lived them. But then she told me something I never experienced. Near the end, when she was about 9, it spoke. Just once. The humming stopped and there was a voice. She said it sounded like someone speaking through a long pipe, hollow and resonant. It said my name. Not my real name, my childhood nickname. The one only our family used, the one my grandmother gave me. And it asked Nadia where I had gone. It missed me. She has been carrying this for almost 20 years and never told a single person. It would be easier if it had been cruel. I don't know how to process what my sister told me. I keep turning it over. When I stopped going to the fence, I don't even remember why I stopped. Maybe I just got older and lost interest the way kids do. It didn't leave. It waited. And when Nadia was old enough, it started again. The same ritual, the same fruit, the same humming. It was patient enough to wait years for the next child. And then at the end, after 5 years with my sister, the only thing it ever said was to ask about me. It remembered me. It wanted me back. I think what scares me most is that I keep catching myself feeling something other than fear. Part of me hears, "It missed you," and feels, I don't know, seen, chosen, like something loved me in a way I can't explain or categorize. And that reaction disgusts me because I don't know what it was. I don't know what it fed me. I don't know what it wanted with 2 little girls at a fence in Central Oregon. But it would almost be easier if it had been hostile. If it had tried to hurt us, I could put it in a box and close the lid. The idea that it cared is somehow so much worse. I grew up in Central Oregon, and there are genuinely parts of those forests that feel wrong. Not haunted, just wrong. Like the land doesn't want you there, but something else does. Has anyone else noticed she said the fruit was sometimes pale and she couldn't name it? That's not grocery store fruit. That's something it grew or found or made. I don't want to think about what OP was eating for 3 years. This is what's keeping me up. The apricots and plums were real, identifiable fruit, like a trust-building exercise. The pale ones came later, once she was comfortable. That's not random. That's a strategy. She finally went to the other side of the fence. I walked around the block yesterday morning and found the access point to the forestry land. There's a gravel pull-off at the end of Ridgeline Drive and a metal gate with a Department of Forestry sign. Past the gate, it's just forest. Dense, overgrown Pacific Northwest woods. Sword fern and salal up to your waist. Douglas fir so thick the light barely gets through. No garden, no fruit trees, no clearings, no paths, no sign that anyone has ever been there. I pushed through to where the fence should be and found it from the other side. The cedar looked different from this angle. Wilder, more part of the forest than part of a neighborhood. But at the top, in that same 3-foot section, the wood was deeply grooved, worn satin smooth in one spot, the grain polished into a shallow channel, exactly matching the concave wear I'd felt from my grandmother's side. Something leaned over this fence every day, for years, from this side. Then I looked down. At the base of the fence there was a small pile of apricot pits, not scattered, stacked, deliberately, carefully, the way a child might stack river stones. A neat little cairn. Some of them were old and gray. Some of them were fresh, wet. I left. I did not walk. I ran. Back at the house, I picked up my phone and called my mother. She answered on the second ring, the first time she's picked up in almost 2 years. I didn't even get a word out. Before I could say hello, before I could say anything at all, she said, "Did it leave you something?" I hung up. I packed my bag in under 10 minutes. I drove back to Cal's place that night, and I have not gone back. I told the realtor to handle everything remotely. Showings, repairs, whatever needs doing. I'm not setting foot on that street again. I don't know what the garden man was. I don't think I want to know. I don't think the answer is something a person can carry and still sleep at night. My mother knew. She always knew. She watched from the window and she smiled, and she sent my sister to the fence after me, and she has never once explained why. I'm done asking. But sometimes when I'm falling asleep, right at the edge, that place where you're not quite dreaming yet, I hear humming, low and steady, with that same rise and fall. And lately it sounds less like a melody and more like it's trying to shape itself around the syllables of my name. The fresh apricot pits at the base of the fence. It's still there. It's been waiting for you to come back. Please do not go back. If you ever had a memory that felt warm until you held it up to the light, you know exactly why she drove away. On to the next one. My parents, 58 you male, 55 you male, finally told me why my older brother wasn't at my wedding and I, 27 female, can't stop shaking. Posted 3 days ago to r/off my chest. I don't even know where to start. My hands are literally shaking as I type this, so forgive any typos. I, 27 female, got married 3 weeks ago. It was everything I wanted. Outdoor ceremony, perfect weather, my little sister Nora, 24, as maid of honor, my dad walked me down the aisle, my mom cried the whole time. Derek, my husband, I still get butterflies saying that, he wrote his own vows and I ugly cried in front of 120 people. It should have been the best day of my life. And it was, except my older brother Caleb, 32, wasn't there. I asked my parents about it before the wedding and got the usual runaround. He's dealing with some things right now. You know how Caleb is. Don't let it ruin your day, sweetheart. And I didn't. Because honestly, Caleb has been a ghost my whole adult life. When I was 10 and Nora was 7, our parents sent him to what they called a special boarding school. He was 15. They said he needed structure, that regular school wasn't working for him. He came back different, distant. Then he just stopped coming back at all. She accepted it. For 17 years, she accepted it. 2 days after the wedding, my parents asked me to come over alone. No Derek, no Nora, just me. My mom was already crying when I walked in. My dad looked like he hadn't slept. They told me Caleb wasn't at the wedding because they asked him not to come. Because when Caleb was 15, he was removed from our home after a violent incident involving a neighbor's child. Not a boarding school, a court-mandated placement. I just sat there. I couldn't even speak. My mom kept saying, "We wanted to protect you girls," over and over like a prayer. I pushed. I needed to know everything. She broke down and told me there was a lockbox in her bedroom closet. The paperwork is all in there. That night after they went to bed, I found it. I wish I hadn't. Inside was a police report. Not one incident, a pattern. Escalating violence from ages 12 to 15. Multiple victims. Animal cruelty. Aggression toward younger kids in the neighborhood. And then I saw a cross-referenced medical record. A fractured forearm in a 7-year-old girl. My name, my date of birth, my address. The scar on my left arm, the one I've traced with my finger 1,000 times. The one from when I fell off the swing set. That wasn't a fall. I'm sitting in my car in my parents' driveway right now. I just read my own name on a police report I found in my mother's lockbox. I can't stop shaking. She went back the next morning. I photographed every page of that report before I put it back. I don't know why I put it back. Maybe because my hands were shaking so badly I was afraid I'd drop the whole box and wake them up. Maybe because some part of me still wanted to pretend I hadn't seen it. The report documented 3 separate incidents. The first was animal cruelty, a neighbor's cat found injured in our backyard when Caleb was 12. The second was aggression toward a younger child on our street. A boy who was maybe 8 at the time, shoved down a concrete stairwell, broken collarbone. The third was the one that finally ended it, what he did to the Morrison's daughter. She was 6. I work as a veterinary technician. I have for 5 years. I always thought I chose this career because I loved animals, and I do, but reading that first incident report, I felt something crack open in my chest. The protectiveness I feel when an injured animal comes in, the way I physically cannot stand to see something small and defenseless in pain. I thought that was just who I am. Now I'm wondering if that was built on top of something I was never allowed to remember. The confrontation lasted 11 minutes. She counted. I went back to my parents' house the next day. I told my mother I'd read everything. She went white. Then she started with the script again. We handled it. The program fixed him. He got the help he needed. I asked her about my arm. She looked at my dad. He just sat there, jaw tight, and said, "We did what we thought was best. You didn't need to carry that." I didn't need to carry it. I've been carrying a scar from it for 20 years. I have this memory I could never place. A locked bedroom door, me crying, Caleb's voice on the other side. I always told myself it was a nightmare. I don't think it was a nightmare anymore. I called Nora that night just to hear her voice. She picked up, but she was weird. Short answers. "I'm fine. Work is busy." Changed the subject 3 times. I didn't push because I didn't know how to say any of this out loud yet. Derek found me on the bathroom floor at 2 a.m., sitting against the tub, scrolling through photos of the report on my phone. He didn't say anything. He just sat down next to me and held me while I cried. I kept looking around our bathroom. The towels we picked out together, the little succulent on the shelf, our normal suburban life, and thinking about how my entire childhood was a set, painted walls hiding rot. Every memory I have before age 10 has a second version now, and I don't know which ones are real. She started searching. I Googled the name of Caleb's boarding school. It took me 10 minutes to find it. It wasn't a boarding school. It was a juvenile behavioral rehabilitation facility that closed in 2019 after a state investigation into staff misconduct. The website is gone, but cached pages describe it as a structured residential program for adolescent males with conduct and behavioral disorders. That's where my parents sent him. That's what "he needs more structure" meant. I found one of our old neighbors on Facebook, Mrs. Pacheco. She lived 2 doors down. I sent her a message and she responded within an hour like she'd been waiting 17 years for one of us to ask. She told me what happened with the Morrison's daughter was worse than any report could capture. She said multiple families on the street knew. She said our parents were asked to leave. We didn't move because of my dad's job transfer. We moved because the neighborhood wanted us gone. I always loved that second house. The big backyard, my purple bedroom. Now I know we were there because the first home became unlivable, not because of a promotion. Every safe memory had a trap door underneath it. I tried to go to work like normal. I'm a vet tech. I've held dying animals in my hands and kept it together. But a dog came in yesterday with defensive bite wounds all down his front legs, and I had to excuse myself to the supply closet. I sat on a box of saline bags and sobbed because all I could see was something small trying to protect itself and failing. I told Derek everything that night. All of it. The report, Mrs. Pacheco, the facility, the move. He was furious. Not at me, at them. But he held it together for me because that's who he is. I'm sitting here now thinking about whether I should try to find Caleb or leave it alone. Part of me wants answers from him directly. Part of me wants to start therapy before I do anything else. I don't even know what I'd say. Hey, did you break my arm when I was 7? Mom and Dad said it was a swing set. I keep looking at this scar and feeling like a stranger in my own skin. Everything I thought I knew about my family was a version they built for me, and I lived inside it like it was real. Your parents didn't protect you. They protected themselves. There's a difference, and it matters. I'm shaking reading this. Please tell me Nora is safe. Please tell me she's not still in contact with him. What gets me is how calculated the swing set story was. They didn't just hide what happened, they gave you a replacement memory. That's not denial, that's construction. That's the part I keep circling back to. I have a vivid picture in my head of falling off that swing set. I can see the rust on the chain, the mulch on the ground. But we didn't have a swing set. I checked with my aunt. We never had one. They described it to me so many times when I was little that I built the whole scene in my head and believed it for 20 years. I don't know what else they built. OP came back with an update. Nora called me crying, and now everything is worse. I wish I'd never posted here. I really do. Because one of you told me to check on Nora, and I didn't do it fast enough. 3 days after my last post, Nora called me at 11 p.m., sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. She told me she'd been talking to someone online for months, a guy named Eli. He found her on Instagram, said he was a grad student, asked her about her life, her family, her childhood. She said he was kind, patient, asked the right questions. She met him twice in person, once for coffee, once for a walk in a park near her apartment. After I told Nora the truth about Caleb on the phone last week, she said something shifted. She went back through Eli's messages and realized how specific his questions were. Things about our parents, about our old house, about me, about the boarding school. He knew things a stranger shouldn't know. She reverse image searched his profile photo. Nothing came up, because it was AI generated. Nora is certain Eli is Caleb. He made a fake identity to get close to his own younger sister. He'd been doing it for months. I threw up. I actually threw up. She called her mother. She shouldn't have. I called my parents right after I got off the phone with Nora. I don't know what I expected. Concern, maybe. Fear. Something resembling the horror I was feeling. My mother listened to the whole thing and then said, and I'm quoting her exactly, "You girls are blowing this out of proportion. He probably just misses his family." I hung up. I didn't say goodbye. I just pressed the button and sat there holding the phone against my chest. Derek was watching me from the doorway. He didn't ask what she said. I think he could tell from my face. That sentence keeps looping in my head. He probably just misses his family. This is a man with a documented history of violence against children, against animals, against me, her own daughter, and her instinct is still to make excuses for him. 17 years later, and nothing has changed. She's still building the set. She's still painting the walls. And now he's built his own fake person to get to Nora, and my mother thinks we're being dramatic. I can't sleep. Nora is staying with a friend tonight. Derek put the chain on our front door without me asking. I keep looking at that scar on my arm and thinking about how she told me I fell. The fact that you are listed as a victim in that report and they never told you is something I genuinely cannot wrap my head around. That's your medical history, your body, your memory they stole from you. I work in family law. Please talk to a lawyer before confronting your parents further. If Caleb has a documented history and is now approaching Nora under a false identity, that is textbook predatory behavior, and there are legal tools available to you. Seconding this hard. The fake profile alone could qualify as harassment depending on the state, especially combined with a prior record involving minors. OP, please don't wait on this. They got a lawyer that same week. Nora and I found a family attorney who took us seriously from the first phone call. We filed a joint restraining order against Caleb. The lawyer said the documented juvenile record, combined with the fake online profile, gave us a strong case. And she was right. It went through. I called my parents to tell them. I don't know why I thought this time would be different. My mother said we were destroying the family. My father said we were making a spectacle out of something that happened when he was a child. I told them he wasn't a child anymore. I told them about the fake profile, the AI photo, the months of messages to Nora. My mother said, "He's your brother." I said, "And I was your daughter when he broke my arm." She hung up. That was 4 days ago. I haven't heard from either of them since. Derek says I did the right thing. Nora says she couldn't have done it without me. I keep waiting to feel relief, but it hasn't come yet. Just this heavy quiet where my parents used to be. She sat in the car outside the courthouse and remembered. After the hearing, the three of us sat in Derek's car in the courthouse parking lot. Nora was in the back seat with her knees pulled up, still shaking. I had the restraining order paperwork in my lap. I looked down at my left forearm, at the scar I've traced with my finger 1,000 times since I was 7 years old. The swing set scar. Except there was no swing set. There was never a swing set. And sitting there in that parking lot, the memory I could never place finally came into focus. A locked bedroom door, my own small voice crying, and Caleb on the other side saying, "Stop crying or I'll do it again." I didn't fall. I was never clumsy. I was a child in a house with a predator, and the adults who were supposed to protect me chose the lie instead. They chose it every single day for 20 years. Every time I touched that scar and they watched me believe it was a swing set, they chose it again. I don't know what comes next. Nora and I are both starting therapy next week. I'm not speaking to my parents. I don't know if I ever will again. But for the first time in my life, the story of who I am isn't being written by the people who covered it up. It's mine now. The truth is ugly and it hurts, and I wish I didn't know it. But it's mine. The boarding school lie is so common in families like this. My friend's family did the exact same thing with her uncle. She didn't find out until she was 30 that he'd been in juvenile detention. Let's move on to the next one. I, 26 female, heard a man humming to my daughter through the baby monitor. I live alone and every door was locked. Something was already wrong before she knew it. I need to get this out while Ellie is napping because I don't know how much longer I can keep pretending everything is fine. I'm a 26F, single mom, remote medical coder. I work from home in a small house I inherited from my grandfather after he passed last year. It's just me and my daughter Ellie. She's 4 months old. Her father Ryan has no custody, no contact, no anything. My mom Diane lives about 20 minutes away, but I handle the nights alone. If you've done solo newborn feeds, you know the drill. You don't sleep, you exist in shifts. The Wi-Fi baby monitor is my lifeline. I keep the app open on my phone so I can watch Ellie's crib from whatever room I'm in, especially during the 2 a.m. bottles. 3 nights ago, I was in the kitchen warming a bottle. I glanced at the monitor app and heard it. A low male voice humming through the speaker. Not static, not white noise bleeding from another device. A lullaby. Deliberate, melodic, steady. The camera showed exactly what it always shows. Ellie in her crib, the dim glow of her nightlight, empty room. Nobody there. Then Ellie shifted in her sleep, made that little grunt she does, and the humming changed tempo. Slower, softer, like it was soothing her back down. In real time, responding to my baby. It knew she was coming. I muted my phone and moved down the hallway toward the nursery. I could hear my own heartbeat louder than my footsteps. I reached for the doorknob and the humming stopped. Not when I opened the door. I hadn't opened it yet. Not when I stepped inside. The exact second my fingers made contact with the brass knob, the sound cut dead. Like someone hit a switch. like someone was watching me walk down that hall and knew precisely when I arrived. I opened the door to silence. Ellie was asleep, breathing soft and even, like nothing had happened. I checked the window, locked. I checked the closet, empty. I went through the whole house, every window latched, every door bolted, the front porch light on, and the yard dark and still. I told myself it was a crossed signal, some neighbor's Bluetooth speaker bleeding into the frequency. Interference, a glitch. But I know what I heard. The humming responded to my daughter's movements. It adjusted when she stirred, and it stopped the instant I touched that doorknob. Not a second before, not a second after. Whoever or whatever was doing this could hear Ellie and could see me. I'm posting here because I don't know where else to go, and I need someone to tell me I'm not losing my mind. The humming came back. Every single night. It wasn't a one-time thing. Over the next 4 nights, the humming returned, always between 1:45 and 2:30 a.m., always the same low male voice, always that same lullaby. And it always reacted to Ellie. If she kicked in her sleep, it softened. If she fussed, it shifted tempo, slower, gentler, like someone rocking her from the inside of the speaker. I started testing it. The second night, I stood frozen in the hallway, bare feet on the hardwood, not moving, not breathing louder than I had to. The humming continued. I could hear it faintly through the nursery door. I stood there for 11 minutes. I watched the clock on my phone. 11 minutes of someone humming to my daughter while I stood 6 feet away doing nothing. Then I reached for the doorknob. Dead silence. Instant. Not a fade out, not a trailing note. A cut. Like a recording stopped. Like someone watching a live feed saw my hand move and hit a button. I tested it again the third night. Same result. I could stand in that hallway as long as I wanted and it would keep going. The second my hand moved toward that knob, gone. I recorded it on my phone the fourth night, played it back with the volume up in the kitchen at 3 a.m. with shaking hands. It was there, clear as anything. A man humming a lullaby through my baby's monitor. Someone was learning her routines faster than she was. I opened the monitor app and checked connected sessions. 2 devices logged in, mine, and one listed with a generic device ID I didn't recognize. I assumed it was a duplicate from when I set up the account on my laptop. I called my mom the next morning, told her something was wrong with the monitor, that I was hearing things through it. She did what she always does, told me old houses settle, told me I was exhausted, told me 4-month-olds make you hear things that aren't there. I almost believed her. I thought about Ryan for maybe 10 seconds. He's Ellie's father, but he has no custody, no contact, hasn't reached out since before she was born. I don't even know if he knows the address. I had no reason to suspect him beyond the fact that he exists. I changed the monitor password that afternoon. New password, 16 characters, uppercase, lowercase, numbers. That night, the humming came back at 2:07 a.m. like I hadn't done a thing. So I tried something different. I grabbed Ellie's bassinet and slept in the nursery with her, door locked. Complete silence all night. The next evening, I put her in her crib, went back to my bedroom, and opened the monitor app. Within 4 minutes, humming. Whoever this is knows when I'm watching through a screen versus when I'm in the room. They know the difference, and they only sing when I'm not there. She went to the police. It didn't help. I filed a non-emergency report 2 days ago. The officer was polite, took notes, nodded in all the right places. Then he asked if maybe my monitor was picking up a signal from a neighbor's device. I told him I live in a house, not a duplex, not an apartment. The nearest neighbor is across the street and 40 yards away. He said he'd log it and suggested I contact the monitor manufacturer. I could tell he thought I was a sleep-deprived new mom imagining things. I went home and factory reset the monitor, wiped everything, created a brand new account with a fresh email address I made specifically for this. New password, new login, completely clean setup. I put Ellie down at 8:30 that night and sat in my bedroom watching the app. Within 20 minutes, the humming started. Same voice, same lullaby, same gentle shifts when Ellie moved. A brand new account that had existed for less than 6 hours, and whoever this is found it immediately. That's when I understood. This was never about the password. I called my mom again, and this time I wasn't calm about it. I told her something was seriously wrong, that someone was accessing Ellie's monitor and I couldn't stop it. There was a pause. Not a thinking pause, a caught pause. Then Diane said maybe I should come stay with her for a few days. I said no. I'm not being driven out of my grandfather's house by something I can't even see. She asked it a question. It answered. I started sleeping on the nursery floor with the monitor unplugged. 2 nights of total silence. Ellie slept fine. I slept terribly, but at least the room was quiet. On the 3rd night, I plugged the monitor back in as a test, left the app open on my phone, and set it on the floor next to me. I was lying 3 feet from the crib in the dark. The humming started within 6 minutes. I was in the room and it still came. It had never done that before. It always stopped when I was physically present. But now it knew I was testing. It knew the rules had changed and it changed with them. I lay there listening to it hum to my daughter and I whispered into the dark, "Who are you?" The humming stopped mid-note. 2 seconds of silence. Then Ellie started crying. Not her hungry cry, not her fussy whine. A scared cry. The kind she makes when a door slams or something startles her. Like the sudden silence woke her up worse than any noise could. I grabbed her and didn't sleep the rest of the night. I'm editing this to add, I'm reading every single comment. I hear you. I know I need to do more. The fact that the humming stopped when you touched the doorknob and not when you opened it means whoever this is has a camera angle on that hallway too. Please check for other cameras in your house immediately. The part about it reacting when the baby stirs is what makes this so much worse than a hack. Whoever this is, they're not just watching, they're parenting. I used to do smart home installations. You would be shocked how many houses I walked into where the previous owner's devices were still active on the network. Check your router's device list. Anything you don't recognize, flag it. I checked after reading this, and there are 11 devices on my network. I own 4. My mom helped me set up the router when I moved in, and she connected her phone and iPad, so that accounts for 6. The monitor is 7. I cannot identify the other 4. One of them has been connected continuously for over 5 months. I moved in 5 months ago. I feel like I'm going to be sick. She posted an update. The title alone changes everything. I found what was humming to my baby, and it was in the basement. I drove to my mom's house yesterday morning, and I didn't leave until she told me the truth. I sat at her kitchen table, and I told her everything. The humming, the doorknob, the factory reset that changed nothing, the device list with 4 things on my network I can't identify. She started crying before I finished. She told me she gave Ryan the monitor login. Not recently. Months ago, before Ellie was even born, back when I was still setting up the nursery. She said he called her, said he just wanted to be able to hear his daughter sleep. She said he's her father, he deserved that much. I cannot describe what it feels like to hear your own mother say that. I asked her when. She said March. Ellie wasn't born until April. He had access to the monitor feed of an empty room for weeks before my baby even existed in it. I went home and pulled the access log like the comments told me to. 3 active sessions. The first one was mine. The second was from an IP address I traced to my mom's network. She'd been watching too, apparently. The third session was connected from a local IP, not an external address, not Ryan's phone, not Diane's iPad. A device on my own home network, inside my own house, that I have never seen and did not set up. Ryan was never the one humming. He had access, sure, but the thing that's been singing to my daughter every night is something physically inside these walls. Wi-Fi baby monitors are notoriously insecure. A lot of the cheaper brands don't even encrypt the feed. What brand and model are you using? I am a mom of twins, and this made me physically ill. The humming responding to the baby moving is what got me. That's not passive surveillance, that's interaction. That's exactly what makes this different from a standard monitor hack. Most of those are just creeps watching or yelling slurs through the speaker to scare people. This person is gentle. They're consistent. They come back every night. That's so much worse. She found it behind the water heater. I checked the router's connected devices list, like the comment said. The unknown device wasn't on Wi-Fi. It was connected via Ethernet, a hardwired connection running through the wall. I followed the cable from the back of the router down through a gap in the baseboard where it disappeared into the floor. It led to the basement, my grandfather's old utility space. I've been down there maybe 3 times since I moved in. Once to check the breaker box, once when the water heater pilot light went out, once to store boxes I never unpacked. It smells like damp concrete and old paint. I went down with my phone flashlight and followed the cable along the ceiling joists. Behind the water heater, zip-tied to a support beam about 6 inches from the router's main line, I found it. A small green circuit board in a black plastic case. No screen, no lights, just a power cable snaking into an outlet I didn't even know was there, and an Ethernet cable plugged into a splitter on the main line. I pulled it. I yanked the power cable and the Ethernet, and I held it in my hands, and it was warm. It had been running. A neighbor who works in IT told me later it was a Raspberry Pi, a tiny computer. Someone had configured it to mirror the baby monitor's video feed and stream audio back through the camera's speaker. That was the humming. Not a ghost, not interference, not Ryan on his phone. A machine in my basement, watching my baby and singing to her. On the SD card inside the device, there were recordings, months of them. The earliest files were timestamped from February, 2 months before Ellie was born, back when that room was still a spare bedroom with nothing in it but a desk and some boxes. Someone installed this thing in my grandfather's house, knowing that room would become a nursery, knowing I would put my baby in there. My grandfather passed last September. I moved in November. Whoever did this had access to the house during that window, or before it, and they knew enough about my life to predict where my daughter would sleep before she was even born. The police have the device now. Forensics is pulling whatever they can from the SD card and the board itself. Ellie and I are staying at Diane's. I have not gone back to the house. I don't know if I can. People keep asking me what the worst part is, and I keep giving the same answer. It's not the humming. It's not the recordings. It's that someone stood in that spare bedroom months before my daughter existed and decided that's where she'd sleep. And they were right. Document every single access log entry before the manufacturer's app rolls them. Screenshot everything. If your ex had credentials your mom gave him, that's unauthorized access in most states regardless of paternity. On to the next one. My girlfriend, 26 female, has been helping me, 28 male, with phone updates, and I just found out what she actually installed. Posted to r/relationship advice by throwaway phone guy 88 2 days ago. I, 28 male, have been with my girlfriend Dana, 26 female, for about 14 months now. We share an apartment together. Things have been good, or at least I thought they were. Dana has always been the tech-savvy one between us. I work in freight logistics. I coordinate shipments all day. I am not dumb, but I am not a phone guy. When Dana offered early on to handle my software updates, clean up my storage, fix my Bluetooth pairing issues, I just let her. She would grab my phone, spend 10 or 15 minutes on it, hand it back, and everything would work better. I never once questioned it. I actually thought it was sweet, like she cared enough to keep my stuff running right. So last week, I am on a Teams call at work, and my buddy Russ, he sits 2 desks over, messages me after the call ends. He says, "Hey man, what is that icon in your status bar?" I had no idea what he was talking about. He screenshot it from the call recording and showed me. Small green icon, top left, not one I recognized. I told him it was probably nothing. Russ would not drop it. He said it looked like a screen mirroring indicator he had seen before on a security training slide. He should have left it alone. I went into my accessibility settings for the first time, maybe ever, and I found 4 apps I did not install. Names I had never seen. They were buried deep, hidden from the home screen, no app icons visible. I started opening them one by one. The first 2 were location trackers running in the background with always-on GPS permissions. The third had full microphone access and was set to activate during phone calls. The fourth is the one that made me put my phone down and just sit there. It had been silently forwarding every text message and recording call audio, sending all of it to a second phone number. I checked the number. It is not Dana's. I do not know whose number it is. I have never seen it before in my life. But the app logs show it has been active for 11 months. Dana installed these things on my phone, and someone I have never heard of has been getting every single message I send, every call I make, and my exact location around the clock. I do not know what to do. My hands are shaking typing this. OP continues. I spent the rest of that day at work barely functioning. I kept opening my phone settings under my desk and scrolling through the permissions. Microphone access, on. Location, always. SMS read, full access. Call recording, enabled. All 4 apps had it all. Then I started looking at the install dates. The oldest one was put on my phone 13 months ago. Dana and I had been together maybe 3 weeks at that point. 3 weeks in and she was already setting this up? I screenshot everything. Every permission screen, every install date, every log entry I could find. I saved it all to a folder on my work laptop because I did not trust my own phone anymore. I did not know who to call. I almost called my mom, but I could not figure out how to even start that conversation. So I called my younger sister, Kelsey. She picked up on the second ring, and I just told her everything. She got quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Do not confront Dana. Do not change anything on the phone. Do not delete the apps. Just document everything and act normal until you figure out what you are dealing with." So he went home to her. I walked through the door that night, and Dana was on the couch watching something on her laptop. She smiled at me, asked how my day was, made dinner. And about an hour later, she picked up my phone off the kitchen counter and said, "Oh, let me check if that update finished installing." She had my phone in her hands for maybe 2 minutes. I stood there loading the dishwasher, and I thought I was going to be sick. I smiled and said, "Thanks, babe." That night, I lay in bed next to her and I could not sleep. I kept thinking about 11 months of texts, conversations with Kelsey, messages to Russ about weekend plans, work stuff, private stuff, all of it going to a number I have never seen. I searched the number online the next morning. Nothing. No results, no social media, no name attached. Russ helped me run it through a reverse lookup service at lunch. It came back registered to a prepaid line. The name on the account was a man I have never heard of. Not Dana's father, not her brother, not anyone she has ever mentioned. A complete stranger has had a direct line into my entire life for almost a year, and my girlfriend is the one who gave it to him. OP waited 2 more days before saying a word. I spent those 2 days exporting everything I could. App logs, forwarding records, permission histories, install timestamps. Rust helped me figure out how to pull the data without triggering any kind of alert on the apps themselves. I saved it all to a USB drive and gave a copy to Kelsey for safekeeping. Then, on Thursday night, I sat Dana down at the kitchen table, and I told her I knew. I said I found the apps. I said I know about the forwarding number. I expected her to deny it, to tell me I was crazy or paranoid. She did not. She started crying immediately. But it was not guilt crying. It was like panic. She grabbed my hands and said, "You do not understand. I did this to protect you, to protect us." She said her ex was dangerous, that he had been stalking her before we got together, and she needed to monitor my phone to make sure he was not contacting me or tracking me through me. She said it was the only way she could feel safe. I asked her about the second number, the one the texts and calls were being forwarded to. She went completely still. Then she said it was a safety contact, a service she set up in case something happened to her so someone would have records. None of it added up. I asked her what service, what company, what is the name on the prepaid account? She could not answer any of it. She just kept saying, "Please, you have to trust me. I was trying to keep us safe." I told her that trusting her is exactly what got me here. She shut down after that, walked into the bathroom, locked the door, and would not come out. I stood in the hallway for maybe 10 minutes listening to her cry. Then I packed an overnight bag and drove to Kelsey's apartment. I have been here since. I have not gone back. I have not deleted anything from my phone. I filed a report with the non-emergency police line this morning, and they told me to come in Monday with everything I have. I do not know what happens next. I do not know who that number belongs to or what Dana was really doing. But I know that every explanation she gave me had holes in it, and she could not fill a single one. This is not love. This is surveillance. Please screenshot everything before she has a chance to remote wipe those apps. Insurance fraud using cloned commute data is a real and growing thing. You need to check if any toll accounts or fleet tracking has been opened using your plate. Seriously, do this today. The fact that she framed the ex as a stalker while actively collaborating with him is genuinely chilling. She built the whole narrative so you'd never question her having access to your phone. That's what I keep coming back to. She cried about him, showed me screenshots of threatening messages. I held her while she shook. And the whole time, she was on the phone with him coordinating which apps to install on my device. I found their Signal thread. She calls me the route in it. Not my name, just the route. OP came back with an update. I moved out, and the police found way more than tracking apps. I moved the rest of my stuff out of the apartment while Dana was at work. Kelsey and Russ helped me do it in under 2 hours. I filed a full police report that same afternoon. Brought my phone, the USB drive with all the exported logs, screenshots of every app and permission, and the forwarding number. The detective I spoke with took it seriously right away. Within a few days, they traced the prepaid number. It belongs to a man named Craig Morrow, Dana's ex. The same ex she spent the first 6 months of our relationship telling me about, how he stalked her, how she was terrified of him, how she had a restraining order against him. There is no restraining order. There never was. I asked the detective directly, and he confirmed there is no record of one ever being filed. Dana owes Craig money, a lot of it apparently, and their arrangement, which I never agreed to, never knew about, never consented to in any way, was this. Dana installed those apps on my phone so that my real-time GPS location and daily driving patterns would be forwarded to Craig, every single day. He was never being protected. He was the product. Craig was using my commute data to file fraudulent insurance mileage claims. He would drive routes that mirrored mine at the same times, so his trips would look like those of a legitimate second driver on a shared policy. The claims were tied to my license plate, my routes, my daily schedule, all of it fed to him through my own phone by the woman sleeping next to me. The detective told me this is not a small thing. Insurance fraud at this scale carries felony charges. And because my identity and vehicle information were used without my knowledge, I am technically a victim of identity theft on top of everything else. I sat in that police station and I just kept thinking about all the times Dana picked up my phone. All the times she said, "Let me check your update. Let me fix your Bluetooth. Let me clear your cache." Every single time she was maintaining the pipeline. I was not her boyfriend. I was a data source. Craig did not need to stalk anyone. He had Dana hand-delivering everything he needed through an app running silently in my accessibility settings. I still cannot fully wrap my head around it. Bro, she literally turned your phone into a wire. That's not a red flag, that's an entire Soviet parade. The forwarding to a third-party number changes this from a relationship problem to a potential criminal matter. Do not confront her before you've preserved evidence and talked to a lawyer. Seconding this hard. If mileage fraud claims were filed under his plate, confronting her gives them time to scrub records. OP needs a forensic copy of his phone before anything else. Some police departments will do this for free if fraud is involved. OP posted one last update. I am still at Kelsey's place. I have been here for almost 2 weeks now. Dana has been sending me voice messages, sometimes 5 or 6 a day. They alternate between 2 modes. In one, she is crying and saying she did everything to protect me, that I do not understand how dangerous Craig is, that she had no choice. In the other, she is furious. She says I ruined her life. She says I had no right to go to the police. She says everything she did was for us. I have not responded to a single one. My lawyer told me not to, and honestly, I would not know what to say even if I could. Craig Morrow has been identified by police and is under active investigation for insurance fraud. The detective told me they are building a case and that the forwarding logs from my phone are a significant part of it. Dana may also face charges, but I do not have details on that yet. What I do know is that my commute data and my license plate number were embedded in fraudulent claims for almost a year. My employer's legal team found out about it last week and flagged it as an exposure risk for the company. I am in the process of changing jobs. Not because I did anything wrong, but because my daily routes and vehicle information are now part of an active fraud investigation, and my company does not want that liability attached to their fleet operations. I get it. It still hurts. I have run credit checks, and I am working with an identity theft specialist, but I cannot yet confirm whether my personal data was used for anything beyond the mileage scheme. That is the part that keeps me up at night, not knowing the full scope of it. I used to think the worst thing someone could do to you in a relationship was cheat on you. I do not think that anymore. The worst thing someone can do is turn you into infrastructure, make you into a piece of equipment that runs in the background, generating value for someone else while you think you are just living your life. That is what Dana did. She did not break my trust. She automated it. Every time she picked up my phone and said, "Let me fix this for you," she was servicing the machine. I was the machine. I am trying to not be angry all the time, but I am not there yet. I had a partner who used to fix my laptop. Found a keylogger 2 years later. The betrayal doesn't hit all at once. It hits every time you remember a private moment that wasn't private. I'm sorry. On to the next one. I, 27 female, found a missing persons flyer from 1999, and the girl in the photo is the imaginary friend I described to my childhood therapist. She had been sitting with this for a week, alone, except for the cat and the silence. I need to get this out of my head and into words because I have been staring at my apartment walls for 7 days and I am losing it. I am 27 female F. I work as a museum archivist. I live alone with my 2 cats, and I have never posted anything like this before. My mother Diane is downsizing, selling the house I grew up in, finally. She asked me to come sort through the storage boxes in the garage, the ones she never opens. Old school papers, tax folders, water-damaged junk from the late 90s. I said sure. I drove out last Saturday with coffee and trash bags, and I started pulling things apart. About 3 boxes in, I found a missing persons flyer. It was faded, half stuck to a phone book, the ink bleeding where water had gotten to it. But the photo was clear enough. Mara Koss, age 6, last seen June 1999. I dropped it. I actually dropped it on the garage floor and stepped back, because the girl in that photo was my imaginary friend. The same face, the chipped front tooth, the yellow rain boots. I used to draw those boots in crayon over and over during my sessions with my childhood therapist, Dr. Paulson. I was 4 years old when I started talking about Mara. The therapy file was still in the garage. Diane kept copies of everything. I pulled my old therapy records from another box. Diane is the kind of person who keeps every document she has ever touched. Dr. Paulson's session notes go from 1999 to 2002, ages 4 through 7. I sat on the garage floor and read them. In the very first sessions, I told Dr. Paulson about my friend Mara. I described yellow boots. I described a chipped tooth. In a note from September 1999, I told her Mara had a red mark on her neck that never went away. I was 4. I could not read. I had no way of seeing that flyer and understanding what it said. But I described this girl, by name, by appearance, down to a mark on her neck, across 3 years of therapy. A newspaper clipping about the disappearance was folded behind the flyer in the same box. Local paper, small column. Girl vanishes from neighborhood, no leads. The details match. Everything matches. I have the flyer, the therapy notes, and the clippings spread out on my kitchen table right now, and my cats keep walking across them, and I do not know what I am supposed to do with any of this. She handles centuries-old documents for a living. These pages made her hands shake. I want to lay this out properly because my brain keeps circling and I need to put it in order. I'm a museum archivist. I have held letters from the 1700s without flinching. I have unfolded water-damaged maps with tweezers and a steady breath. But sitting at my kitchen table with Dr. Paulson's session notes spread out in front of me, I could not keep my hands still. I went through every note chronologically. Age 4, fall 1999. I told Dr. Paulson about my friend Mara, who wore yellow boots and had a tooth that was broken at the front. We played a game near the fence. Age 5. Mara was still there. I described the boots again, the tooth again. I said we played in the dirt by the fence and she showed me things. Age 6. Still talking about Mara. Dr. Paulson coded every single entry the same way. imaginative play, social rehearsal, developmentally normal. 3 years of notes, and not once did she flag it as anything else. I called my cousin Amber because she is the only person in my family who will hear something strange and just sit with it instead of spinning out. I told her what I found. She went quiet for a long time and then said she remembered me talking about Mara when we were kids. She thought it was a normal imaginary friend thing. Everyone did. There was almost nothing left of Mara Koss online. I googled Mara Koss after I got off the phone with Amber. There was almost nothing. One archived mention from a local newspaper. Girl vanishes from a duplex neighborhood. No suspects. Case went cold by 2001. That is it. A 6-year-old disappeared and the internet has one paragraph about it. I sat there reading that paragraph over and over and I felt something shift. Like the floor of my own memory was tilting. Everything I understood about my childhood had this quiet, ordinary explanation. I was a creative kid with an imaginary friend and a good therapist who helped me through it. That was the story. That was always the story. I went back to the notes. There is one entry from October 1999 that I keep returning to. I was 4 years and 8 months old. Dr. Paulson wrote that I said Mara has a boo-boo on her neck that does not go away. She noted it under the same heading as everything else, imaginative play. A 4-year-old described a persistent mark on the neck of a missing child, and a licensed therapist wrote imaginative play and moved on to the next session. That note has been sitting in a file in my mother's garage for 23 years. The address on the flyer. She had read it a dozen times without recognizing it. I called the county records office on Monday morning. I sat at my desk with my cat on my lap, and I tried to treat this the way I would treat a provenance request at work. Stay methodical. Write down what you know, note what you need, make the call. The woman on the phone confirmed it. Mara Koss, age 6, reported missing June 1999. Case classified cold since 2001. Never found. No arrests, no suspects named publicly, no resolution. I thanked her and hung up, and then I looked at the flyer again. I had been so focused on the photo that I had not really processed the address printed at the bottom. It is the duplex. It is the address of the house I grew up in. Left unit was us. Right unit was the Koss family. Mara Koss lived on the other side of the wall from my bedroom. Diane never mentioned neighbors by name, not once in 27 years. I sat there with my cat purring against my ribs, and I felt something come apart very quietly inside my understanding of my own life. Mara was not imaginary. She was not some face I conjured. She was right there. She was next door. The later sessions were worse. I went back to the therapy notes. The sessions from late 1999 into 2000 are different. The details get sharper and stranger. In December 1999, I told Dr. Paulson that Mara and I played a game where she hid and I could not find her, and she said it was dark where she was. In February 2000, I said Mara was cold and she wanted to come inside, but she could not. Dr. Paulson wrote the same thing every time. Imaginative play consistent with social rehearsal framework. Developmentally appropriate. I was 5 years old, and I was telling a licensed professional that my friend was somewhere dark and cold and could not get out, and she wrote developmentally appropriate. I have not called Diane yet. I have picked up my phone 4 times and put it back down. I am not ready to hear whatever she is going to say, because I already know it will change everything again. But I have to ask her. I have to know what she knew and when she knew it, and why that flyer was in her garage for 27 years and she never said a word. I am going to call her tomorrow. The fact that your therapist and your mother both independently decided to bury this makes my skin crawl. That's not protecting you. That's protecting themselves from being involved. Dr. Paulson logged it as imaginative play at your mother's request? That's an ethical violation. That therapist had a duty to report if a child was describing details of a missing person case. I'd look into whether Paulson is still practicing. She retired in 2014. I checked. I keep going back and forth between being furious and understanding that my mom was a single parent with no money living next door to an active missing child case. She was terrified. But Dr. Paulson was a professional. She should have known what those details meant. I described the mark on Mara's neck in 3 separate sessions. 3. And it just got filed under Rich Fantasy Life? This is the most disturbing thing I've read on here. Not because of anything paranormal, but because every adult failed and a little girl might still be under those steps. She called Diane, and Diane did not deny it. They're sending someone to the duplex tomorrow. I called my mother last night. I sat on my bathroom floor because it felt like the only room small enough to hold me together, and I asked her directly. I said I found the flyer. I said I found the therapy notes. I said I know Mara Koss lived in the other half of our duplex. Diane went quiet for a long time. Then she said, "You did not imagine her. You used to play with her through the fence in the backyard. You two would crouch in the dirt and talk through the slats. And then one day she was gone, and you just kept talking to her." I asked her about Dr. Paulson. I asked her why every session was coded as imaginative play. She told me she asked Dr. Paulson to log it that way. She said she was a single mother with no money, living next door to an active missing child investigation, and she was terrified that if anyone found out her 4-year-old was describing the missing girl in detail, they would pull me into it. Interviews, police, cameras. She could not handle it. Dr. Paulson agreed. They decided together that the safest thing for me was to let it be an imaginary friend. So they buried it. Everything I said about Mara for 3 years went into a file marked imaginative play, and nobody ever looked at it again. Then she found the November entry. After I hung up, I went back to the notes. I was looking for something specific, and I found it. November 1999, 5 months after Mara disappeared. I was 4 years old. Dr. Paulson wrote that I said Mara showed me the dark place under the steps, where it is cold and she cannot get out. I read that sentence, and I stopped breathing. The duplex had exterior basement steps on the side of the building, concrete steps leading down to a utility door. Underneath those steps, there was a crawl space, shared between both units, sealed off with a concrete lip and a metal grate that had been rusted open for years. I know this because Diane mentioned it once when she was talking about the house being old and poorly maintained. That crawl space was never searched. I checked the newspaper clipping, I checked everything I could find online. The investigation focused on the surrounding woods and a nearby drainage area. Nobody ever looked under the steps of the building she lived in. I was 4 years old, and I told a therapist that my friend was in a dark, cold place under the steps and she could not get out. And a grown woman with a license wrote it down and filed it away. I have submitted a tip to the county cold case unit tonight. I attached scans of the therapy notes. I work in cold case research. Please, please send those therapy notes to the investigating agency. Session notes from a child that young with that level of detail are taken very seriously now, even if they weren't in 1999. The dark place under the steps where it's cold and she can't get out. I literally got chills. You were 4 years old. How does a 4-year-old make that up? They don't. Kids that age don't fabricate spatial descriptions with sensory detail like temperature and confinement unless they're drawing from something real. Either she saw something, heard something, or was told something. And given that nobody in her life claims to have told her, the first two options are what investigators will focus on. 2 days later, they went to the duplex. I did not tell Diane. I sat at my kitchen table at 2 in the morning with both cats asleep on the chair next to me, and I filled out the online tip form for the county cold case unit. I scanned every page of Dr. Paulson's session notes. I scanned the flyer. I scanned the newspaper clipping. I wrote a summary the way I would write a provenance report at the museum. Dates, sources, chain of custody for every document. Except this was not an artifact. This was a 6-year-old girl. I described the crawl space under the exterior basement steps. I described what I had told Dr. Paulson in November 1999. I attached everything, and I submitted it, and then I sat there in the dark and waited for something to feel different. It did not. I'm stuck on the fact that your mom kept the flyer in the same box as your therapy records. Part of her knew these things were connected, she just couldn't look at it directly. Yeah, I have thought about that a lot. The flyer was not in a random box. It was in the same box as my session notes. She put them together. Maybe not consciously, but she put them together. And then she sealed the box and put it in the back of the garage for 27 years. I do not think she is a bad person. I think she was scared. and she made a choice, and then she could never go back and unmake it. But Mara deserved better than a sealed box. On to the next one. My 27 female downstairs neighbor bangs on the ceiling only when I'm having private conversations, and I finally found out why. Posted to r/nosleep by Throwaway Floor Plan 3 days ago. I'm 27 Ferminal Vem. I work from home as a remote medical coder, and I live alone with my cat Oliver in a small one-bedroom apartment. My life is quiet by design. Headset on by 8, seated at my desk by the window, clicking through patient records until 5. Oliver sleeps on the bed while I work. I don't play loud music. I don't have people over. The building is old but decent, rent-controlled, the kind of place you hold on to. My downstairs neighbor, Mrs. Hartley, has lived in her unit for 11 years. She's in her 70s, always polite, always quiet. We'd nod at each other by the mailboxes. She left a tin of shortbread outside my door last Christmas. That was the extent of our relationship. 3 months ago, the banging started. Not constant, just sharp, deliberate knocks rising up through my floor. I assumed it was a noise complaint. Old building, thin floors, maybe my desk chair rolling too hard on the hardwood. So I bought a thick rug for my office corner. Didn't change a thing. I started paying closer attention, and the pattern showed itself fast. The knocking only happened when I was talking. Not walking, not cooking, not playing the TV at full volume. Talking. On the phone with my younger sister Becca, banging. On a work call with my coworker Diane, banging. I tested footsteps on purpose, stomped from one end of the hallway to the other. Nothing. Cranked the TV loud enough that Oliver left the room. Not a single knock from below. She needed to be certain. So I ran a real test. I paced my apartment for 2 full minutes. Heavy steps, opening cabinets, dragging a chair across the kitchen tile. Dead silence from below. Then I stopped in the center of my living room, stood completely still, and whispered one sentence. Just one. I think something is wrong downstairs. 3 sharp knocks hit the ceiling so fast I felt them behind my ribs. I froze. I mouthed the same words again, lips moving, no voice, no air behind them. Nothing. I waited 30 seconds. Then I whispered it one more time, barely louder than breathing. Bang, bang, bang. Right beneath my feet, like she was standing directly under me with her fist raised, waiting. Oliver was staring at me from the couch, and I swear he felt it too. I stood in the middle of my own apartment, afraid to open my mouth. Mrs. Hartley is not reacting to footsteps. She is not reacting to noise. She is reacting to the words I say out loud. Specific words. And I have no idea how long she has been listening. The pattern was undeniable. Now she needed someone else to hear it. I called Becca the next evening. I needed to say it out loud, to someone who wouldn't think I was losing it. I told her about the tests, the whispered sentence, the 3 knocks. She was quiet for a while, then said, maybe the floors just carry sound in weird ways. I wanted to believe that. Then I whispered, I'm worried about Mrs. Hartley. 2 hard knocks from below. Becca heard them through the phone. Neither of us said anything for about 10 seconds. I switched topics on purpose, asked Becca about her job search, talked about a billing error I caught at work that week. 5 minutes of normal conversation. Total silence from downstairs. Then I said, I think I should call Mr. Petrosian about the situation below me. Bang, bang, bang. I started keeping a list after that. Every topic that triggered knocking and every topic that didn't. Mrs. Hartley's name, knocking. The landlord, knocking. Someone should check on her, knocking. Work, weather, Becca's life, Oliver doing something funny, nothing. It was specific, it was consistent, and it was destroying me. I do therapy over FaceTime once a week. It's the 1 hour I let myself be honest about how I'm actually feeling. 2 weeks after the tests, I brought up the neighbor situation in session. I told my therapist I felt watched in my own home. Mid-sentence, the knocking started. My therapist asked what that sound was. I couldn't answer her. I just sat there on my bedroom floor with tears running down my face because the one place I'm supposed to feel safe, my apartment, where I work, where I sleep, where I live alone, had turned into a place where I couldn't even speak freely. Then Diane offered to help. Diane and I had gotten close over the past year. We started as co-workers on the same coding team, but she became a real friend. The kind you text random things to at 11 at night. She's sharp, good with tech, practical in a way that calms me down. When I told her what was happening, she didn't dismiss it. She said, "Let's debug this together." She came over on a Saturday. We ran the same tests, stomping, TV volume, then quiet conversation. The knocking came right on cue when I mentioned Mrs. Hartley by name. Diane's face went pale. She believed me. Before she left, she pulled up an app on her phone, a white noise generator she said was designed to mask vocal frequencies from carrying through thin floors. Something about disrupting the specific range of human speech so it wouldn't travel downward. She installed it on my phone, showed me the settings, told me to leave it running whenever I was home. That night, I called Becca with the app running in the background. We talked for 40 minutes. I mentioned Mrs. Hartley twice. I mentioned Mr. Petrosian. I said, "Someone should check on her," out loud, almost daring the floor to answer. Nothing. Complete silence from below. I cried again, but this time from relief. Diane had fixed it. I trusted her completely. 3 weeks of silence. It should have felt like peace. The app worked. Or at least, that's what I told myself. 3 weeks went by without a single knock from below. I called Becca twice a week like normal. I did my therapy sessions on FaceTime without flinching. I even mentioned Mrs. Hartley by name during a call with Becca, just to test it. Nothing. Oliver started sleeping on the bed again instead of hiding under the desk. I felt like I had my apartment back. But then Diane started saying things that didn't sit right. Little things. She texted me on a Tuesday asking, "Did you end up calling your landlord about the heat?" I had complained about the radiator on a phone call with Becca the night before. I never mentioned it to Diane. I figured I must have said something at work and forgot. Then, a week later, she asked how Becca's interview went. Becca had told me about a job interview over FaceTime. I was alone in my apartment. I had not told Diane about it. I know I hadn't because Becca asked me not to tell anyone until she heard back. I sat with that for a while, turning it over, trying to find the moment I must have slipped. I couldn't find it. Then I checked the app. I don't know what made me finally look at the permissions. Maybe it was the Becca thing. The white noise app had microphone access enabled. It had background activity running constantly. I went to the App Store to check the developer, and there was nothing. No company name, no website, no other apps listed. Just a generic icon and a one-line description. I took screenshots of everything. I didn't say anything to Diane yet. I didn't know what I would even say. The landlord had his own answer. It wasn't the right one. I caught Mr. Petrosian in the hallway the next morning. I asked him if he'd checked on Mrs. Hartley recently, if anyone had welfare checked on her. He waved me off, said her grandson handles everything for her. Pays her bills, picks up her groceries, takes her to appointments. "Good kid," he said. "Been coming around more the last 6 months or so. She's lucky to have family like that." He told me the grandson's name was Kyle. I'd never heard it before. I thanked Mr. Petrosian and went back upstairs. I sat at my desk and tried to work, but I kept coming back to the same feeling. That something had shifted, and I couldn't name it. The knocking had stopped, but so had my privacy. Diane knew things she shouldn't know. The app on my phone had access it shouldn't have. And downstairs, a woman I'd never really spoken to had a grandson who was suddenly very involved in her life. That night, I lay in bed with Oliver curled against my side and my phone on the nightstand. The white noise app was still running. The little green dot in the corner of the screen meant the microphone was active. I stared at it in the dark and realized I couldn't remember the last time I'd been truly alone in my own apartment. Not in months. Maybe not since the knocking started. Maybe not since before that. The fact that she only bangs when you speak and not when you walk around is deeply wrong. That's not a noise complaint. That's a response. You tested it by mouthing words silently versus whispering one sentence? That's such a smart instinct. Most people would have just assumed thin floors and moved on. Mrs. Hartley banging on the ceiling wasn't her being awful. She was terrified. That poor woman was trying to protect you and herself at the same time and couldn't say it out loud. This is what keeps me up. I spent weeks hating her. I filed 2 noise complaints. She was a 74-year-old woman being financially abused by her own grandson, and the only way she could warn me to be careful what I said out loud was to bang on the ceiling. I went down to apologize, and she just held my hand and didn't say a word. I think she's still afraid to talk in her own apartment, too. Then, Throwaway Floor Plan posted an update. I know who was listening, and it wasn't my neighbor. I deleted the white noise app. I factory reset my phone. Then I started digging. Before I wiped everything, I'd sent the app file to a friend of Becca's who works in IT. He told me it wasn't a white noise generator. It was a modified audio relay. The app used the microphone permission to stream live audio from my phone to an external server. Every call, every FaceTime session, every whispered conversation in my apartment for the past 3 weeks, all of it was being captured and sent somewhere else. The white noise it played was real, but it was camouflage. The app's actual function was surveillance. I confronted Diane at a coffee shop because I didn't want to do it in my apartment, and I didn't want to do it over the phone. I showed her the screenshots, the permissions, the IT analysis. She didn't deny it. She broke down almost immediately. Diane has been dating Mrs. Hartley's grandson, Kyle, for 5 months. Kyle has been cashing Mrs. Hartley's Social Security checks. He has access to her bank accounts. He's been withdrawing her money for months. Textbook financial elder abuse. When I started noticing the knocking and talking about Mrs. Hartley on phone calls, Kyle panicked. He was terrified I would call Adult Protective Services. He couldn't let that happen. So he used Diane. He asked her to get closer to me, to monitor what I was saying and to whom. The white noise app was his tool. Diane installed it on my phone, and every word I said in my apartment went straight to Kyle. But the knocking was never what she thought it was. Here's the part I can't stop thinking about. The ceiling banging was Mrs. Hartley. It was always Mrs. Hartley. But she wasn't threatening me. She wasn't angry about noise. Kyle had told her that if the upstairs neighbor ever reported anything to the building manager or to the authorities, he would put her in a care facility. He told her she'd lose her apartment, the one she's lived in for 11 years. So, every time Mrs. Hartley heard me say her name through the floor, every time she heard me mention calling Mr. Petrosian or say that someone should check on her, she banged on the ceiling. Not to scare me, to warn me, to beg me to stop talking. Because every word I said about her was a word that might reach Kyle. And if it reached Kyle, she'd lose everything. That 74-year-old woman was standing beneath my floor with her fist raised, terrified, trying to protect both of us the only way she could. And I spent weeks hating her for it. I filed noise complaints about a woman who was trying to save me. I can't write anymore right now. I'm a social worker. The grandson situation is textbook financial exploitation of an elder. Please contact APS even if you only have suspicions. You don't need proof to file. The white noise app thing is horrifying. I just checked mine and it has microphone permissions. Deleting it right now. Same. I just went through every app Diane recommended in that thread last month, and 3 of them had background mic access enabled by default. We need to stop installing things friends casually suggest without reading permissions. I didn't make the call from my apartment. I drove to Becca's house that same night with Oliver in his carrier on the passenger seat. I used Becca's phone to call Adult Protective Services. Not mine. I will never make a call that matters from my own phone again. I reported everything. Kyle's name, the Social Security withdrawals, the app, what Diane told me at the coffee shop. The caseworker said they would open an investigation. Kyle is now under review for financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. I don't know the details beyond that, and I don't want to. Diane blocked me on everything within hours of our conversation. Phone, email, every social platform. She didn't fight it, didn't explain herself further, didn't apologize again. She just disappeared. I keep waiting to feel angry about it. The anger hasn't come. There's just this flat, hollow space where she used to be, where the texts at 11 at night used to be, where "let's debug this together" used to be. I trusted her with my fear, and she was the thing I should have been afraid of. I moved out of the apartment 3 weeks ago. Becca helped me pack. I didn't move because of Mrs. Hartley. I didn't move because the building is unsafe. I moved because that apartment is ruined for me. I can't sit at my desk by the window without wondering who's listening. I can't walk across my own floor without bracing for a sound from below. She got out, but she took the silence with her. The new place is fine. It's a studio closer to Becca. Oliver likes the windowsill. It's quiet here, actually quiet. The kind of quiet that should feel like relief. But every time I start to speak in a room by myself, I stop. I hold my breath and I listen. I listen for knocking that isn't there. And sometimes I hear it anyway. Not real knocking, phantom knocking. A thud in my chest that syncs with the memory of those 3 sharp bangs rising through the floor every time I whispered something true. My therapist has called twice. I haven't picked up. It's been 6 weeks since my last session. Not because I don't want help, because I cannot make myself talk out loud in a room alone. Every time I open my mouth, the silence feels like it's waiting, and I close it again. I think about Mrs. Hartley standing in her apartment below mine, fist raised to the ceiling, terrified that the words coming through the floor would reach the one person who could take everything from her. I think about how she was trying to protect me the whole time, and I filed complaints against her. I think about how both of us were standing in our own homes, afraid to speak. I still am. Diane sat in your apartment, watched you cry about feeling surveilled, and she was the one doing it. I genuinely feel sick reading this. On to the next one. I, 28 female, went to a silent meditation retreat with 3 other women. We all remember a 5th person being there. The retreat center says there were only 4 of us. She needed the silence. She just didn't expect it to follow her home. I need to get this out somewhere because I have been staring at my journal for 3 days and I feel like I am losing my grip. I am 28 other female, occupational therapist, living alone in my apartment with my 2 cats. A few months ago, my ex-boyfriend Caleb and I ended things. It was ugly and drawn out, and I will spare you the details, but I was not doing well. My younger sister Priya told me I needed to do something for myself. Her words, not mine. My coworker and close friend Danny had read about this silent meditation retreat at a converted farmhouse in rural Vermont. 5 days, no phones during sessions, no talking. She said it sounded like exactly what I needed. I thought she was crazy, then I booked it anyway. The farmhouse was beautiful in the way old things are beautiful. A little uneven, a little cold, but solid. The meditation room had hardwood floors and thick cushions arranged in a loose circle. There were 4 of us, plus the facilitator, a woman named Abra, who had been running these retreats for years. The other 3 women were Jess, a retired school teacher in her 60s, Tanith, maybe mid-30s, who had this calm energy like nothing could rattle her, and Suki, youngest besides me, quiet even before the silence officially started. We ate our meals together at a long wooden table without speaking. We meditated. We walked through the Vermont woods single file. And for the first day and a half, I felt something I had not felt since before Caleb. Peace. Genuine, full-body peace. Then she looked at what she had drawn. On the second night, we had free time after the evening session. I sat in my room with my journal and started sketching. Nothing good, just stick figures, the way I doodle when I am processing. I drew the dinner table. I drew 5 figures sitting around it. I labeled them. Jess on the left end, Tanith across from me, Suki beside Tanith, me on the right, and at the far corner, slightly apart from the rest of us, Marin. I could picture her exactly. Dirty blonde hair pulled back, a gray linen top she wore at least twice, the scar on her left wrist, thin and pale, the kind I have seen on patients and know better than to ask about. She sat on the corner cushion during meditation. She walked behind us during walking meditation. She ate at the end of the table. I stared at my drawing and I tried to remember her voice. Anything. A word, a laugh, a whisper to pass the salt. Nothing. I had spent 2 full days within arm's reach of this woman, and I could not recall a single sound she had ever made. I told myself it was a silent retreat. Of course I had not heard her speak. But I could remember Jess clearing her throat, Tanith's footsteps on the stairs, Suki sniffling during morning meditation. Every one of them made sounds. Small, human, involuntary sounds. Marin made none. I closed the journal and went to bed, but I did not sleep for a long time. And the feeling that something was wrong did not leave. The days folded into each other. And so did she. The rhythm of the retreat settled into something almost sacred. Wake at 6, sit on your cushion, breathe. Morning meditation lasted an hour, sometimes longer. Abra never rushed us. Then walking meditation through the woods behind the farmhouse, single file on a dirt path still soft from recent rain. Then breakfast in silence at the long table, journaling, afternoon sitting, evening session, sleep, repeat. I started to understand why Danny had recommended this. My body was unwinding in ways I did not know it had been wound. I stopped thinking about Caleb for entire stretches of hours. I stopped rehearsing conversations that would never happen. And through all of it, Marin was there. She always took the corner cushion, slightly outside the circle the rest of us formed. During walking meditation, she fell a few steps behind, not lagging, just drifting, like she was on a slightly different current. I found myself aware of her the way I am aware of patients at work. I am trained to read bodies, posture, micro-expressions, the way someone holds their hands when they are trying not to feel something. Marin held her hands palms down on her knees during meditation, fingers spread, like she was pressing something into the floor. She reminded me of a woman I treated 2 years ago, a grief patient who carried her loss so physically you could see it reshape her shoulders. Marin carried something like that. I felt drawn to her. Not socially. I did not want to talk to her. It was more like recognition, like sitting near her made my own sadness feel less lonely. 4 women on the path. She counted twice. On day 3, during a break, I texted Priya, told her the retreat was really helping, that she had been right, that I needed this. She sent back a string of heart emojis. I opened my text thread with Caleb. I typed 3 words, deleted them, and put the phone away. That felt like progress too. On the 4th day, everything shifted. We were doing the afternoon walking meditation through the woods. I was third in line behind Jess and Tanith. Suki was behind me. I could hear her footsteps in the leaves. I glanced back, the way you do without thinking. I counted. Jess, Tanith, me, Suki. 4. I counted again because something in my chest tightened. 4 women on the path. I turned back around and kept walking. That evening, we sat for the final session of the day. I settled onto my cushion and opened my eyes just enough to see the room. Jess in her usual spot, Tanith across from me, Suki with her knees pulled up, and Marin, on the corner cushion, palms down, fingers spread, exactly where she always was. I had not seen her on the path. I had counted and she was not there. But she was here. She had always been here. I closed my eyes and tried to let it go. But something had cracked open in my understanding of that room, and I could not press it shut again. The silence ended. The questions didn't. I drove home on the last day with the windows down and my chest feeling lighter than it had in months. My cats were furious with me in the way cats are, ignoring me for 20 minutes, then both in my lap at once. I unpacked slowly. I felt good. I felt like myself again for the first time since Caleb. On Monday, I told Danny about the retreat over lunch. I described the farmhouse, the woods, the meals. I told her about Jess and Tanith and Suki. And I told her about Marin, how quiet she was, how she always sat apart from the group, how there was something about her that made me feel less alone in my own grief. Danny asked normal questions. What did Marin do for work? Did you exchange numbers? And I opened my mouth to answer, and nothing came out. I could describe Marin's face in detail. The way she held her hands palms down during meditation, the scar on her left wrist, the gray linen top. But I could not tell Danny a single thing Marin had said. Not what she did for work, not where she was from, not one word. I told myself it was obvious. We did not speak for 5 days. But then I remembered knowing things about Marin. I knew she was grieving. I knew she had been to the farmhouse before. How did I know that? When did she tell me? I could not attach a single piece of information to a moment where it was communicated. It was just there, in my head, like something I had always known. 4 names, 4 signatures. No Marin. I emailed Abra to say thank you and asked casually if she could share contact info for the other participants. She wrote back warmly and said she would check with the others in my group of 4. I replied right away. There were 5 of us, I wrote. Could you include Marin as well? Abra's response came with an attachment, the sign-in sheet from the first morning. 4 names in 4 different handwritings. Mine, Jess's, Tanith's, Suki's. No 5th name. No Marin. I asked about photos. Abra sent the group picture from the final day, all of us standing in front of the farmhouse, 4 women and Abra. I zoomed in on the spot to my left. That is where Marin stood. I remember her shoulder almost touching mine. There is nothing there but the farmhouse wall. I sat in my apartment with my cats on my lap and stared at that photo until my eyes burned. Then I called Jess. I had barely said hello when she cut in. Hey, she said, did you stay in touch with Marin? I did not answer for a long time. I think Jess knew why. This is the most unsettling thing I've read here in months. The detail about there being no corner cushion, just a bookshelf, made my stomach drop. She asked me to stay. I'm going to be thinking about that line for a very long time. OP, please take care of yourself. Shared false memories are documented in psychology, but they require a source. Someone plants the seed and others confabulate around it. If none of you spoke during the retreat, there was no verbal source. That's what breaks this for me. That's exactly what's been eating at me. We didn't speak for 5 days. The facilitator gave instructions but never mentioned a 5th person. I've gone through it 100 times. There was no seed. No one said her name first. When we broke silence on the last day and I said, I'll miss Marin, the others just nodded like it was obvious. Nobody asked who Marin was. We all already knew. I have a degree in health sciences. I understand confabulation, and I'm telling you this doesn't fit any model I've read about. She posted an update, and the title alone was enough. I found the photo of Marin, and I wish I hadn't. I have been in contact with all 3 of the other women since my last post. Jess, Tanith, and Suki each remember Marin clearly, not vaguely, clearly. Tanith has notes from the retreat on her phone that mention Marin by name. Suki sketched the meditation room in her journal and drew 5 cushions. And Jess had something that stopped me cold. In her reflection journal from the retreat, she wrote the line, Marin told me she lost a daughter. I read that and my hands went numb. I asked Jess when Marin told her this. We were on the phone and I could hear her trying to find the memory. She said she knew it. She could feel the weight of it, the truth of it, the way you remember something someone confided in you. But she could not place the moment. There was no scene, no whispered conversation in the hallway, no note passed at dinner. It was a silent retreat. Nobody spoke. Jess went quiet for a long time. Then she said, I don't know how I know that. I drove back to the farmhouse last weekend. Abra remembered me and let me in. I walked straight to the meditation room and pointed to the corner where Marin always sat. I said, that cushion right there. Abra looked at me like I had said something in a language she did not understand. There is no corner cushion. There is a built-in bookshelf in that corner. It runs floor to ceiling. Abra told me it has been there for 12 years, since before she took over the space. Then Abra said a name, and it was the right one. I stood in that room, staring at a bookshelf where I have 5 days of memory of a woman sitting on a cushion. My legs felt like they might give out. Then Abra said, very quietly, that a woman named Marin Ellison attended a retreat at the farmhouse in 2019. She remembered because Marin had been one of her favorites, gentle, deeply sad, the kind of person who carried grief like it was something physical. Marin died by suicide 3 weeks after leaving the retreat. Abra's voice cracked when she told me. She said she had always wondered if she should have done more. I could not speak. I stood in that meditation room and I thought about the scar on Marin's left wrist, the one I saw, the one all 4 of us saw, the one that was on a woman who has been dead since 2019. I drove home in silence. No radio, no phone. I sat in my apartment with my cats and I did not move for a very long time. Maren Ellison was real. She was there, and she has been dead for years. The fact that Jess wrote down something Maren told her during a silent retreat is absolutely chilling. How do 4 people independently fabricate the same false memory with that level of detail? Has anyone checked whether other retreat groups at that farmhouse have reported the same thing? If Maren keeps showing up in groups after 2019, this is way bigger than one retreat. I was thinking the same thing. OP said the facilitator got really quiet when the name came up. She didn't say, "That's impossible," or "You're mistaken." She just pulled up the 2019 records, like she'd done it before. She found Maren, the real one. I found Maren Ellison's memorial page 3 days after I got back from the farmhouse. It took less than 10 minutes of searching. There was a photo of her near the top of the page, taken at some family gathering, smiling in a way that did not quite reach her eyes. The face was hers, the dirty blonde hair pulled back the same way, and on her left wrist, barely visible at the edge of the frame, the scar. Every detail all 4 of us remembered was right there in a photograph of a woman who died in 2019. I sent the photo to Jess, Tanith, and Suki in separate messages. No context, no caption, just the image. All 3 responded within the hour. Jess wrote, "That's Maren. Where did you find this?" Tanith wrote, "That's the woman from the retreat, right? The one in the corner?" Suki just sent a single question mark, and then, "How do you have a photo of her?" I told them everything. The sign-in sheet, the group photo with 4 people where there should have been 5, the bookshelf where the corner cushion should have been. Maren Ellison, dead since 2019. Nobody spoke for a long time on that call. Then I told them the last thing, the thing I had been sitting with alone for 2 days because I did not know how to say it out loud. I went back through my journal from the retreat. Every page, every doodle, every half-formed thought I scribbled during free time. The last entry was written on the final morning, right before we broke silence. My handwriting. I know my handwriting, but I have no memory of writing the words. It says, "She asked me to stay." That is it. Nothing before it that leads there, nothing after, just that line, in my hand, in my journal, and a blank space in my memory where writing it should be. I keep thinking about what Maren did to us. Not haunted, that is the wrong word. She shaped us. I made decisions during that retreat that I thought were mine. The decision not to text Caleb back, the quiet resolve I felt on day 4, like something had settled inside me. The grief I processed. Was it my grief, or was I carrying hers? I don't know where my own mind ends and something else begins. I have not been able to meditate since I came home. I tried once. I sat on a cushion in my apartment, closed my eyes, and within seconds I felt someone settle into the space beside me. That weight, that stillness. I did not open my eyes. I have not sat on that cushion again. Priya keeps asking if I am okay. I keep telling her I am, but I leave the lights on now when I sit in silence, and I do not close my eyes. I keep getting stuck on the part where none of you can remember her voice. You remember her face, her clothes, her scar, where she sat, but not a single sound she made. That's not how normal memory works. You remember voices before faces, usually. And that is the last story for today.